Trees for the Future has planted over 155 million trees around the world through the support of individuals like you. Together, we train farmers to plant and manage forest gardens that sustainably feed families, raise incomes, and revitalize the earth. Join Trees for the Future in planting trees that end hunger, poverty, and deforestation. Find out more by visiting trees.org/radio. That's TREES.org/radio.
The no contract advantage. Unlimited talk and text plus 3 gigabytes of high-speed data now for $20 a month for the first 3 months.
What's happening? Can you hear me in Chicago? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Cool. Who's on the board today?
This is Devin, the new guy.
Hey, Devin, the new guy. Good to have you. How are you?
I'm all right. A little nervous, but we got this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can bring your voice up a bit. And is Johnny there?
Johnny is there. Can
Excellent.
You hear me now?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you. That's perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should be fairly clear today. Chat room's rolling. Hi, chat room. Be up in a second. All right. Good morning, Carl. Good morning, Brad. Good morning, EO. Move you guys over here so I can actually see you. There you go. Oops. We are about to go live. Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday to you as well. Lab Rats is not coming back insofar as I know. Sorry, Foxy Water.
Me and my brothers are very upset about that.
Yes, I know. I think we should do a movie, but that's me.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Live exclusively for WCPT in Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. How are you this fine Saturday morning? Johnny Million is in the studio in Chicago with us. I hope. Anyways, we'll see. We'll find him. He may be just... There he is. He's just...
Check!
He's just... Don't scream into the microphone.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Devin's new. He's settling in.
I'm trying to make sure he feels at ease. Check!
What? How is that helping? How in any way does that make him feel more at ease?
I guess I don't understand
what at ease means. My concern is that you were speaking like Donald Trump is tweeting this morning in all caps.
Tweet storm already?
Well, the artificial Mexico tariff kerfuffle that he threw up. Yeah, to throw up as sort of cover for everything else that's going on to look like a negotiated deal, where Donald Trump has this regular plan that he does, and it's a strategy that works effectively in the news cycle because a lot of people in the news cycle are still stuck on taking the president at his word as a habit, which is not a bad habit to have, by the way. There's certain things where even after the issues, let's say, that the Catholic Church has had, do what?
It used to apply. You could take the president at his word because it was like, oh, well, this all makes sense.
Yes, exactly. And you can also, you can defer to people of status and authority in a respectful way, in spite of the fact that people who have held that status or authority have maybe, let's just say, mismanaged that circumstance a little bit. You know what I mean? That I am deferential and respectful to Catholic priests occasionally, in spite of what may have happened in Boston at any given time or something along those lines. The point is I don't necessarily think that's a bad habit to be in. No. That happens a lot in the press when it comes to the president of the United States. And it is hopefully, the interesting thing is, it will be a habit that they maintain, I'm sure, until, I guess, right up to the time that he leaves office and a Democratic woman comes in or something, and then all of a sudden that kind of deferential, well, we don't have to take what she's saying at face value. Yeah. So Trump does this thing where he takes away something that's there already, and then before it's gone, rescinds what was there already, his order to remove what was there already, and then wants credit for putting it there in the first place.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's something, by the way, he's probably learned from the stock market. Because a lot of the stock market issues that we experience and I just tweeted about this a moment ago at Hal Sparks. You can also follow Johnny Million at JMillion on Twitter and use the hashtag HSRPM to talk to us during the show. There is the stock market does this thing like it did last week, which is it dropped 1,000 points on the news of these tariffs. And then it gained back 800 of those points on news that they were going away. And then it kind of went back to its normal steady investment climb that it's been on for 10 years. And Trump wants credit for the 1,000-point jump, but not credit for the 800-point drop, or vice versa, whichever it was. He doesn't want credit for the 1,000-point drop. He wants credit for the 800-point leap. As if the 800 points up, it lost 200 in that situation, but somehow.
Does this keep happening because everybody has somebody like this in their family, like just some weird glory hound who has to take credit for everything good and is never wrong when something goes poorly?
Yeah, well, and it only works as long as people let you get away with it. And Pamela in our chat room is saying the so-called Mexico deal will not pass the courts because you can't send asylum seekers to a foreign country. Mexico knows that. It already lost once. They just want to avoid the tariffs. This is true. A lot of what they are, what we supposedly got in the deal with Mexico is status quo. They're like, he literally was shouting this morning that they've agreed to buy lots of fruit and vegetables from us. They're buying all kinds of, they take them anyways. They grow a lot of them there. And they just, and I don't know, by that measure, are they just keeping what they're growing? Is that what's happening? And people will look for the details in this. But by the time the details come to the surface and are a page 15 story in the newspaper, that they're actually nothing, and this ended up just being effectively a stock manipulation strategy. Yeah. One of the reasons why businesses, and wow, thank you, Hal Vickery, holy smokes, super chatting for us today. That's amazing. Thank you, bless you. Every single bit helps, and that's incredible. He's donating for a new tailor for Donald Trump to the super chats, which I think, quite frankly, they just need somebody to maybe sew his mouth shut at certain times, or at least sew his thumbs into gloves. I think that would be, for the safety of the country, they should put on thumbless gloves on his fingers, just so he can't tweet, at least when he goes into the bathroom. But the point I'm trying to make is, thank you, JG, is that one of the reasons why I think business likes Donald Trump, even on the sly. Wow, thank you, Billy. Holy smokes, everybody's so generous today. Thank you so much. The reason I think businesses like him is because they like him sort of for the same reason that hardcore anti-abortionists and far right evangelicals and the like, and quite frankly, hyper-Orthodox Jews and Muslims for that reason, because the anti-abortion crowd is made up of an interesting, gathering of human beings that actually support it, whether they're the vocal ones about it or not. The evangelical wing of it often takes the lead on that, and the other ones just kind of drift in the background, hoping they succeed, but they exist there. One of the reasons, they put up with his multiple wives and his philandering and whatnot, because ultimately the Supreme Court is a benefit to them. They believe that they will tear down Roe v. Wade, and he will be the instrument by which it happens. And they liken him to a biblical figures that were tortured and sinful men, but ultimately benefited the line of David or the lineage of Christ or what have you. They They will put up with it because these men ultimately helped, even if, more than they hurt. And so that made them part of the plan. It's all a part of the plan. So, yeah. But in the case of business people, a lot of times you're like, why, he obviously is all over the place. The car companies are freaking out because he wants to roll back emission standards, which effectively, one of the reasons why the Japanese car makers swamped us. Thank you, JJ Ray, and thank you, Ann. One of the reasons why they swamped us in the 80s and really started to take over in the 90s and have, the majority of cars you will see on the street are Japanese at this point is because when Carter set the limits that, for emission standard, and we started removing lead from gasoline and doing all the things that would healthfully, and again, outside the realm of climate change, outside the belief that, man affects the globe's environment, we know for a fact day to day that car exhaust will kill you or send your children to the hospital or give you diseases. And so we tried to mitigate that factor. When we started to do that, the foreign companies went, oh, well, America is the biggest car market in the world. They've set these standards. We're going to have to make our cars to fit those standards. And they went about doing it. Meanwhile, American car company owners, like Lee Iacocca, who often gets credit as this, wonderful business forward-thinking man. My dad, I remember, read Iacocca's book when I was in high school. Was big on this guy and his business acumen. Spent a good portion of their R&D money on lobbying Congress to get these things overturned, and ended up, instead of creating cars that could compete with the Japanese cars that were coming out, that were more, because they were quality efficient, were also more economically, they were cheaper and better cars, ran farther on less gasoline. Those kind of things were so beneficial, and they had spent all their money just trying to talk people out of making them live up to this standard, that they got behind the 8 ball and Japanese companies ran away with it. That's what they're fearing will happen again on the rolling back of these efficiency standards. We'll talk more about that when we come back, but also I want to talk about a little bit of the Dem circular firing squad that happened this week and why we need to knock it off. I have a zero tolerance policy for this. Everybody's worried about brooming the Crowders of the world off of YouTube. They don't do half the damage that all these foot shooters on the left are doing. We'll be back. Thank you. Yes, I did say contribution. Did I say contribution? Yes. Wow, you guys, thank you so much. Word must have gotten out that we need all the help we can get over here at HSRPM. So thank you so much, you guys, for the super chats. Again, Hal Vickery, thank you so much, and JG and Billy Hutchins, thank you. The I'm Happy 3 of the exonerated 5 Central Park 5 Live With Me in Georgia Fund. That's awesome. Ann Parker, thank you so much. My constipation to the course. Loved you, Hal. And JJ Ray, thank you so much. Bless you guys for that. That's really great. Honda Toyota family here. Yeah, that is the reality of it, is that technological companies, and this is interesting, this will apply to some degree to social media companies too, once we get around to that, is that whatever standard we set will be, what America sets as a standard is matched by the world ultimately. And if we lower that standard, that is also true. There are some Democratic candidates I like less than others, but I remain quiet about it online. Yeah, I would say beef.
Hey, Hal?
Yes. Yeah.
We got a message from the boss. We need you to please talk about Wrigley Field Republican Fund, the Wrigley Field Republicans fundraiser, and apparently there's a protest.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Apparently so.
All right.
Got the...
Okay. Well, I will dovetail it in if I can. have Johnny look up the details on it, though, because it's just happening live, I guess. Is that happening right now?
Yeah, we're on it right now.
Gotcha. Is this a Mercers are all gathering down at Wrigley Field? Yeah, these are all I'm getting is the news that it's actually going to happen.
Coming back to you.
Yep, cool.
Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. So apparently there's, I guess is it the Mercer family that owns Wrigley? I always get confused because when something is named after a family and then another family owns it, that's always curious to me. Like at least
it's hard to tell.
At least Walmart makes sense to some degree, Like the
right.
Yeah, it's Mr. Wall. Sure, great. But yeah, Wrigley always has that spirit of chewing gum around it, and yet, unfortunately, lurking in the background is the lovely Mercer folks, who have for whatever and this goes to that sort of Koch brothers, Mercer crowd belief that they all privately talk about Donald Trump as a moron, but they also treat him as a useful idiot. The essence of this is that he is, as long as he serves the purpose of what we need, yep. I don't care about anything else that he does, as long as he doesn't capsize the whole thing. Now, the Mexico tariffs thing that came up, there was a danger that it might in fact do that. That capsizing the whole thing was a distinct possibility. And so when you got, Mitch McConnell, coming out of his shell and gnawing a leaf on television, we can't have that kind of stuff going on. That, if Mitch turns on you in any way, you're going to have difficulty. They'll all do it in private. They will never do it out in the open because the one thing they still revere about Ronald Reagan is his rule about not criticizing another Republican. But now they have taken it to this it's incredibly, somebody's yelling, the Ricketts family. Thank you so much, MJ and Chai. And thank you for becoming a patron, MJ and Chai. Thank you so much, by the way. The idea that that Donald Trump will start these tariffs, and again, this is I think personally, it's difficult to talk about some of the tariff stuff simply because I don't buy it. I don't think it was actually going to happen. I think this was one among another, a dozen PR pushes that we've seen. These artificial calamities that Trump tosses up, bats around, watches the press play with it like a live grenade, and then yells, it was a dud the whole time, and then moves on to the next thing. And by the time we find out that there's no effective change between our dealings with Mexico at all, and that any change that we were going to enforce upon them is actually null regardless, because legally there is no standing for it. And again, this idea that we can take asylum seekers who are in the United States and put them in another country just because it's on, and legally, this is my problem across the board with Republicans, is this idea that on the one hand, they seem, in terms of business law and in terms of things like free speech, like look at their reaction to how when things get demonetized on YouTube, for example, that any movement at all is a slippery slope to Armageddon. Everything. Trans bathroom bills are a slippery slope to left-wing activists mutilating their children at birth to remove all signs of gender. Like that's where they go. Everything is, and it's off the rails towards that direction. It is, and it's relatively automatic. Not like, if this happens and this happens and this happens. It's like, next step is, social Armageddon. But when it comes to normal legal practice, they seem completely unable to fathom the legal ramifications of what they are asking for. And the idea that this country or any other could simply dump people in a foreign country against the wishes of that foreign country and ignore the legal ramifications of that, where would that end? Where at some point, if you're China or Russia, why not just roll a boat up in the middle of the night and dump every murderer you have onto the shores of America? Just find a patch of unguarded beach somewhere. Why not? I mean, the United States has done it with Mexico, and Mexico has no legal international recourse if it goes that way. I mean, it's insanity. The same I think would apply to these draconian and horrific and violent and disgusting anti-choice bills, specifically the Missouri one that went through this week.
That's ridiculous.
Yes. I mean, we were dealing with this with Virginia, with transvaginal ultrasounds, just a few years ago, and it was treated with the level of horror and absurdity that it deserved, tagging that governor with the nickname, dealing with
Governor ultrasound.
Yeah, exactly. But now, for some reason, we've got a situation where the strategy is so shotgun approach. There are multiple ones. So people, there are varying approaches, and they're basically testing the waters. I mean, this is like the velociraptors checking the fences in Jurassic Park. They're systematically looking for weaknesses, And in this particular area, this idea that, and they've already had to carry these out because right now the law stands that, a woman has to undergo a government-mandated medical procedure. Now, how in the world...
Small government.
Right.
Small government.
Yeah, small enough to fit on the end of a speculum.
Apparently.
Yeah. Here's what I don't understand. And this is, while defending the rights of anti-vaxxers and flailing about the Alex Jones conspiracy that the government wants to put an RFID chip in you, right? How many right-wingers, like preppers, like hardcore Tea Party angle folks, those crowd, are afraid the government wants to put a chip in you. They're going to put a chip in you. There is no legal way the government could put a chip in you until last week, because a government-mandated medical procedure from exploratory to, I simply like sterilization. Like the fact that they wouldn't take the obvious legal precedent that they are establishing, saying the government can mandate a medical procedure for your own good or the good of society, and that somehow doesn't register in their heads, that takes us in the direction of their kind of draconian, why they need a howitzer to fight a tyrannical government, but they'll let the tyrannical government they're afraid of insert its fingers into a woman, by the way, to prove that she was violated. This is the amazing part of it. The part of the law that they're pushing is to make sure that a woman was violated against her will. They are insisting that she be violated against her will. The unhinged madness of that is incredible. I mean, this is aside from the argument that there are a million ways to lower the number of abortions in the country through positive life-affirming policies like daycare, Head Start, childcare, after-school programs, anti-poverty initiatives, contraceptive availability, and I don't know, Planned Parenthood, family planning, actually saying, yeah, we're going to have kids at some point. We want to do it right, make sure the kid is healthy when it's born, and make sure that we are, throughout having all the prenatal care that we could possibly have to guarantee that this child has the best chance it could possibly have once it's born. None of that's important. None of that. They're not interested. Not interested at all. And if they are, it's charity should handle that. You know what I mean? What if there are no charities in that area? Well, I mean, don't have a kid in that area. You're just dumb or poor. And poor people shouldn't have kids. I mean, I essentially think that is ultimately what it boils down to, is the argument.
Yep.
So apparently there is a fundraiser going on at Wrigley Field, and there's protests around it. I have mixed feelings about some of these things. I believe in large marches and I believe in protests. I think it was Mitch Hedberg who said, "I'm against protesting, but I have no way of showing it." He was a genius. We miss him dearly.
Sorry, that's fantastic.
It's amazing. He was a genius, and it's sorely missed. Yet another, reason why I don't do drugs. But so if I'm for, the major marches that we've had. I think it's incredibly important. I think a lot of times they have to reach a critical mass before the news even pays attention. We had the largest anti-war protests in history around the Iraq War. Most of them didn't get any play at all. And so I think the numbers, much like voting, have to be overwhelming. You don't mess around. If you have the opportunity to go to a protest and it's within, it's something you care about, get out there. And if you can't, you can, through social media and other things, you can promote it by, finding live streams of it. You can carry that message. We got to take a break. We're at the half hour, but we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about focused effort going into the 2020 primary season and how you can be valuable to it, not just loud. Because I don't want us to be the political equivalent of an all-caps tweet from Donald Trump, and I'm afraid that's how it happens a lot these days. We'll be back right after this. So what these states are missing is that some unwanted children we drain taxes for food, shelter, care, medical, police, and confinement. This is true fancy free. There is absolutely a reason between there are economic reasons you could make a case for making sure that there are fewer unwanted children. And I believe, I'm not pro-abortion. I'm pro-choice. I think there should be other alternatives. And I think certainly the availability, in hospitals, especially when you're dealing with rape and incest, the availability of RU-486 or other abortifacients that are immediately after the incident, and their ubiquitous availability is integral to the physical, psychological health and well-being of women in the country, period. And once you start getting into the third trimester and the like, there's the vast majority, if I would not say all, women who are in that situation, but a intrinsically, statistically insignificant amount on a measure that's inconceivable, are doing so because they are in danger of dying, or the fetus itself is not viable. It will not live outside the womb for more than a couple of minutes, and its death will be painful to whatever extent it can feel pain. And the tortured decision that women find themselves making in those moments. And my girlfriend and I know someone who went through that recently, who had to deal with the fact that she was, they were picking out names, they were, arranging the room, they were doing all this stuff, and ended up getting this terrible diagnosis from the doctor, going in there and finding out that their child was not viable. It was missing organs, and they ended up going through a therapeutic abortion simply because it was not a viable fetus, and it ended up passing away. They had scheduled to have this happen, but the child itself was still
60 seconds.
Thank you. Before they even got to do the procedure, they got that this was going to be necessary, and then the fetus died on its own inside her womb. It was, and just getting that news, dealing with that, it's horrifying. It's this idea that this is it points to a disgusting opinion about women that they have.
30.
Thank you. What you would have to believe women are like that, points to a lot of things. And I don't know what their mothers were like. I don't know what the women around them were like. I don't know what their fathers are like. But there's got to be something deeper in there. This disdain is gross. So, please, women to them are breeders. Yeah, the broodmares, Hal Vickery.
Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show, all local, all the time. I'm on every Saturday morning from 10 to 11, right before Hal Sparks. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So the majority of the news that I saw this week in dealing with people who are going to try to be president next cycle, and this includes Donald Trump. And I guess Bill Weld, although I didn't see a single story related to anything policy-wise that he has, which, by the way, I think would be immensely helpful to hear. I think the fact that an actual Republican is actually running against him should be news more often than it is, because the reason multiple Democrats can run is simply because multiple ideas are welcome in the Democratic Party, and there's a lot of people trying to find a solution for actually a lot of issues we agree on. Just how to solve it is the only difference. Whereas in the Republican Party, if you say one bad word about Donald Trump, you're out, you're done. And looking at the last week about this, while Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and his cabinet are giving a green light to all these states to pass these anti-choice bills to limit a woman's right to have control over her own body. And again, not just even around abortion, because that's certainly the big word that catches all the attention, but around contraception and the ability to just manage her own birth cycle, just to choose to have a child when she wants to make sure that she has the means and wherewithal before she becomes pregnant. They're trying to limit that. So let's not pretend that it's all about this unborn child concept. It is also about making sure a woman has a child when they want her to, not when she does. And this is a fight that's been going on since the pill came onto the market. And they're never going to let it go. But in the process of this, what ate the entire news bandwidth, at least in terms of, CNN and MSNBC in this area, was the fact that Joe Biden reversed his opinion on the Hyde Amendment. Now, the Hyde Amendment...
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. The Hyde Amendment was put in as a mitigatory amendment to guarantee that they could fund Planned Parenthood, essentially, which was a Democratic goal, and still deal with religious conservatives who didn't want their money going to elective abortions. Let's being the most generous we can be with this. And to get the funding for Planned Parenthood, which allows for every other service, which, again, Planned Parenthood oftentimes gets pegged as this abortion provider and as a primary thing, but the gift they actually give is helpment and management with actual bringing pregnancies to term, making sure that women, especially low-income women, have the prenatal care that they need. And underfunding this constantly under the guise that they want to, limit, the availability of abortion, when in reality, I don't think they care either way about the prenatal needs of poor women, or they do care, that they hope they don't in some ways, it seems. This was a compromise made to guarantee that bill got through. And there are many of those in our past. There are many of those that became necessary to, if you look back at the compromises made in bills in the past to get things that we needed, and this applies to things like the ACA and other things, back in the, and going back to the 80s and the 90s with things like the Hyde Amendment, that of course we as both as a party and as the public and as adults and as modern humans are going to evolve on all these things. And the initial response from the Biden campaign when asked about the Hyde Amendment was, yeah, that's policy. And then when they looked at it from the point of, readdressing it, he went, actually, you know what? I take it back. We're not for that anymore, because it was predicated on the idea that the other side was playing fair, that we would have other ways of guaranteeing that low-income women could have access to abortion when they needed it. And as you try to cut those off, then the good faith argument around the Hyde Amendment falls apart. So bye. That's it. So that's the end of the Hyde Amendment. That's the only reason the Hyde Amendment existed, was because there were allowances for other ways to get that funding. Once you try to tourniquet those off, then it's got to go. And after a short conversation about how the Republicans in these states were acting and how the president was going to support that, and how the Supreme Court's being loaded by anti-choice, anti-woman conservatives, the decision was, well, yeah, we can no longer support that, because there is no good faith situation on the other side where we can, without violating your religious beliefs, we can solve this for you. And the minute you remove those other solutions, which they were absolutely doing in a Machiavellian way, cutting against as effectively promises made, then the Hyde Amendment goes with it. And that was the decision by the Biden campaign this week. It took them about 16 hours, because ultimately they hadn't even addressed it until asked about it. The first address was, yeah, that's the policy we've agreed on for a long time. And then they went, you know what? We need to look at this. And that's how it should work out. But the news was eaten up with Biden there were 5 news stories I read about Biden still supporting the Hyde Amendment that were written after they had already said, no, we don't. After he'd already directed staff and the change on the website and all that kind of stuff, stories were still going up fresh saying he supported it. That's the problem I have. And that ate more of the news cycle. And by the way, Democrats got something they wanted this week. All of the 2020 Democratic candidates are pro-choice, and none of them support the Hyde Amendment. As of Wednesday.
There you go.
Thursday afternoon. But literally into Friday, I was still reading. I wasn't, by the way, reading right-wing Twitter feeds, which I see because I subscribe to some of them because I gotta. I wasn't seeing them decrying that Biden has now ceased to support the Hyde Amendment. I was seeing all left-wing partisans, true believers, still saying he supported it after he'd already come out and said he didn't. That's my issue. And so it's incredibly important that we recognize that the minute the news cycle is being eaten up with some sort of infighting storyline, what you need to focus on is what you're not seeing. Because a lot of this, by the way, by the way, there's nothing wrong with going, tweeting the Biden campaign when a story comes up, or tweeting the Harris campaign about, prison reform, or Bernie Sanders about guns, or what have you. And if there's an issue you don't think they go far enough on, or that they want, and Billy in our chat room saying, is this another purity test? And it is exactly that. And the purity test will get boosted by the Russian troll farms. They need no help from us. But if you look at, literally, if you look at any of the infighting storylines that come up in the Democratic Party, first of all, once somebody moves on an issue and you've got a victory, tout the victory and move on. Mm-hmm. Be proud of yourself for doing that. Even if somebody goes, well, they support the $15 federal minimum wage, but they want to do it in stages. Awesome. At least they're on board. I'm open to the plan. Maybe I think there's a way to do it faster, but unless I've done the math myself, I'm not going to insist that they do it on my time scale. And SoCal Suzy Q in our chat saying, how can you tell if it's Dems and not trolls or whatever? Because some of these people are blue checks. I know them personally. And I know they are allegedly people who care, about, one of them in particular is big on environmental issues, and so, I followed her for a long time on her environmental stuff. And she was doing it for 2 days after the fact. And this for me is the biggest problem. Anytime you start hearing about Dem infighting, what I would suggest is ask yourself, what story am I not hearing from the Republican argument against what's going on? And what also am I not hearing about the difference between whoever's running to primary Donald Trump on this issue? Because if we're going to do this, both sides 50-50 nonsense, then Bill Weld needs equal time with Donald Trump. I mean, obviously the equal time aspect things has gone out the window to some degree. But if the president's campaigning from the Oval Office, which he absolutely has done, which is kind of illegal.
We actually have a couple calls.
Oh, right on. Well, you know what? We are at the quarter hour. Let's take a break, and we'll come back and get those calls. We'll be back right after this. I'm sure somebody wants to, bite my head off for suggesting that Dems try to get along this time and don't spend their time shooting themselves in the foot. And allowing whoever the Democratic nominee is to be beaten down during the primary season to within the margin of error so it can be stolen again. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Hey, chat room. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Wait, hold on. I have a graphic. I always forget. I don't know if Can't Stop Lion's in here with us or not. He might be out. So I have a, let's see. Where is it? What is this guy? What's that little thing going on? There you go. How's that? Don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We will be having a post show afterwards with a special guest star, somebody who has missed you guys. And yeah, JG, illegal is schmillegal. If the president does it, it is not illegal. We're this close to him just straight up quoting Nixon. Bill Weld worked with Hillary as a staff attorney on the Watergate Senate Committee. Yes. It's like Russians on social media want Dems to fight each other. Again, yeah, gee, Ellie. Yeah, you think? That's and again, they don't need any help from us. And they're getting better at it, by the way. Not all of them have Arnold 157725957 kind of names. They've actually gotten better at creating full names and stuff. Well, thank you for licking the like button, Brad. I appreciate that more than I can even say. This is going to be my pet peeve all during this cycle. Unfortunately, we have seen that the DNC.
Seconds.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we've seen that the DNC cries unity only when it's the more lefty faction of the Democratic Party who must unify with the more middle of the road Democratic Party. I think Evernum, that's an unfortunate truism. I think and here's the thing. There's no way for centrists or middle of the road people who are trying to actually create solutions, who are decent people. They just don't agree on methodology with some. Thank you. There's just no way for them to all caps what they think. Being sensible is not, a big sales point these days. So that's a tough one. I don't belong to an organized political party. I'm a Democrat, right? This is a constant.
I'm Dick Kay from Back on the Beat, and here is the mega worldwide radio program with Hal Sparks.
That's true. Thank you. Dick Kay, of course, follows us every Saturday. Stick around for that. It's a good time. And then we do have some callers, so let me get to them right away because we only got about 10 minutes left in this hour. The show just flies by when Johnny's with us. I think it's just the joy of having him around. I just want to... Yeah. Johnny Million, everybody. Johnny Million.
Aw.
Okay, who do we have?
Line 2, Richard.
Line 2, Richard. Hello.
Richard.
Hal. Hi, Hal.
Hi.
Hi, Johnny B. I just want to say, one, I'm a long-time listener, listened to you since day one.
Oh, thank you.
Get that out of the way. No problem. Second, I'm the one that called about it's the Ricketts and not the Mercers.
Yes, thank you.
Cubs.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I always get mixed up with who owns the building and who owns the Cubs and who's the Trump supporting ones and who's the people who just have the site. So there you go. Thank you.
And even though Tom Ricketts supports Trump, most of the Ricketts are Democrats and they despise Trump. So
yeah,
just want to clarify that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
No problem. Two more things.
Yeah.
That quack who's in Missouri about the women's reproductive
systems,
rights.
Yep.
He left Virginia under a cloud of controversy. So he's in Missouri now under a cloud of controversy. So they need to get rid of him.
Yeah, this is like Mengele going to Argentina after the war, or whoever that was.
Absolutely.
These people just bounce around like pedophile priests and go, well, I couldn't get the law through there because there's too many sensible people. Let me go find some place where money really makes a difference in a state that I can steamroll somebody and get into a position of power. You're absolutely right.
Okay, and the last thing is, I agree with you. When Democrats attack other Democrats over petty little things, I tend to have a negative connotation against the ones that they are supporting. What I was upset that Biden was for the Hyde Amendment, but when he reversed, I was still upset so much because I felt he reversed under pressure. But he reversed, and I was happy about that.
Right.
Now, ultimately, that's going to make the decision for me with regards to who I vote for here in Illinois. I'm leaning more towards Kamala and Elizabeth Warren. I'm leaning more towards them. Sure. But ultimately, whoever is our candidate to go against Trump, I'm going to support them. I don't care who it is.
Right.
I'm going to support them. And anyone that attacks other Democrats like that, it just shows that attack them on their policy. That's one thing. But if you're constantly attacking them over little petty stuff, it just shows a weakness in the other candidate that I find just very distasteful and just ultimately a turnoff.
Right.
And I would love to get Carl from Tennessee's input on it because I haven't heard from him in a while.
Yes, absolutely. He Nashville Carl. Yeah, we'll get him in here at some point. We're sending out the bat signal, Nashville Carl. If you're listening, you have a request.
Have a good one, okay?
That's nice. It's like we're gonna play the hits. The same thing, Ike the Ranter. We love you, man. We hope you're out there doing well.
To hear right.
Always.
I always agree with Ike.
That's right.
I love to hear him rant.
And we need to, I think at some point, once we achieve the technological needs of the show, and we've been able to lock down all my technological issues, we're gonna all save up and buy Steve from the Gold Coast a real phone.
I like
because his snorkel flip phone, whatever he's like live from a fish tank is
take away his driver's license.
You're not the only person. I mean, Uncle Dick also has big problems with him.
Sure.
And when I say Uncle Dick, I mean Uncle Dick K.
Yes,
I
understood.
Call him Uncle Dick.
Yeah, I understand. That's fine. I think that might make some people have a twitch in their eye because of I don't know that. Anyways, that because of a different uncle. Anyways, I appreciate the call. Anyway, gang. Suddenly I turned into Don Rickles. Anyway, gang.
What happened?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's grab another caller real quick before we because we got a couple minutes left in the hour and I can get them in and let them say their piece.
On line one.
Excellent. Hey, Peter, welcome.
Hello, Hal. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Go ahead.
As far as Biden goes, this is just typical Biden, going from one position to the next, back and forth. He was out over 2 weeks ago, Hal, supporting the Hyde Amendment. So to say that the news cycle didn't catch up with his reversal is
no, I'm saying he did.
Okay.
I think the pressure worked or whatever. I'm just saying he did. He didn't hang on to it like a moron for 3 months. He recognized, and also, by the way, the law changed over the last little bit. The Missouri laws going through, the ones going on in the red states, those did shift, and that does change the equation.
Understood, Hal.
Okay.
But the problem is you question Biden, and he runs like a little nervous schoolgirl and changes to be liked. He's not going to make it. The first debate is
he represents the Democratic Party. He's running to run the he's running to represent the Democratic Party. And if the base and the overwhelming volume, again, there's a difference between chasing polls, for example, which may not be the case in terms of the Hyde Amendment. We've yet to see how that actually plays out, because if you look at what the support for abortion rights versus once you get into the weeds of how much, it gets very watery. And if you're appealing to, Dems are locked down and they want to get rid of Trump and they're concerned about his policies, but you need enough independence to guarantee you have a statistical advantage. You're talking to some of those people and it matters, and you're going to lose some of those people when you. But that's not what you're saying, though. You're saying he just goes back and forth and whatever, and then whoever shifts doesn't have what?
Hal.
I'm listening.
Biden doesn't have a core value. He's been in politics for how many years? 50 years? And the guy's been wrong on just about everything, and he jumps around. Let's just wait to the debate.
Give me an example, because give me an example of some. You should be able to give me at least three. No. You can't say he's been wrong on almost everything and then not give me something.
He was wrong on Iraq. He wanted to split it up into 3 separate countries. Wrong on going after Osama bin Laden. There's 2. How's that?
Wrong on going after Osama bin Laden? How do you mean?
He said don't do it. He didn't want to do it. He advised Obama not to do it. So regardless, let me get my other points out real quick to you, if you would. Okay.
Go ahead.
Secondly, you talked about how the Democrats won't shoot each other in the foot. That's how politics are designed. They're going to go after Biden, all of them, on the stage.
I didn't say won't. I said shouldn't. Of course, some of them will.
I know, but they are, and Thirdly and final, I'm man enough to admit when I made a mistake, unlike some people, a.k.a. Dick K, that I swore on your show last week. Inadvertently, it was in the heat of the argument. I said the BS word.
Yep.
But you do have a delay. You could have just beeped it instead of cutting me off, but that's okay. I understand you do it. It's
just
not
don't
my
do
intent
it.
To swear.
Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Well, of course, but in the heat of the discussion, shall we say?
I have heated discussions every single time I do this show. You and I have heated discussions. I swear like a sailor during my stand-up show, but I don't. I have yet to actually drop one of those bombs on this.
Hal, all I'm doing is trying to apologize, telling you it wasn't intentional.
I appreciate that.
Made a big deal of it when
we appreciate that, Peter. I appreciate that, and I don't mind respectfully
apologize for his mistakes.
To who? What? Sorry, no, I'm not responsible for anybody else's show.
Doesn't apologize.
I don't care. Not my business. And I am not responsible for the words that fall out of anybody else's mouth. So, but I will say this.
I understand.
Yeah,
I am just letting you know.
I don't care though.
It wasn't intentional.
Understood. Well, no, yeah, I get that it wasn't intentional, but but that's the whole point. Corral yourself, have the argument, and I'm glad to have it with you. And by the way, differing opinions about whether or not to go after Osama bin Laden, for example, there were generals who also disagree with that. It doesn't mean their voice wasn't valuable in the conversation. He was also the one who thought we should limit the Afghanistan war and start moving out sooner as well. He was the one who was actually strategizing that. That was his priority. He thought that the hunt for Osama bin Laden would shorten that. Would extend our length of time in Afghanistan. That was his concern. It doesn't mean it was just kind of random. He didn't go, who needs to go after him? Who cares? It wasn't a flippant decision. And that matters. Thanks so much for the call, and thanks for not swearing this time. And don't ever come on and try to chastise my situation for what another radio host says on the air. Who cares? Question what I say, go after what I say, have at it.
Talk radio people, do not do it.
It's super weird. Happens all the time.
5 seconds.
Yep, we'll be back. Yeah. Biden will fade. He is doing it now as he's always done, but he might get help from the DNC to get the nominees so you can be happy after. Yeah, his numbers aren't fading. If anything, they're cementing. That's the thing. And even the ruffles that he has, with the way the news cycle is on this, although I will say that any problem that a Dem has, and you watch for this to happen, any problem that a Dem has will punch through the news cycle and carry way longer than any of the nonsense Donald Trump has done. That's the amazing. That's probably the singular. Oh, James, thank you so much. You guys, I love you guys. Thank you. And I didn't get to say I missed somebody earlier too because we were in the middle of the heated. Yeah, Sandra Nelson Crozier. Thank you guys so much. I just feel. Can you feel the love tonight? That I think the essence of this, is that every time one of these things comes up, and if it's an issue you really have a problem with that doesn't shift, where the shift isn't happening, then by all means address it. But in terms of the Donald Trump punting in that, you need to pass that ball off to Trump, Weld, and all that the fight going amongst them. So. Sorry, everyone. Not really how his polls show him pulling strong numbers really are oversampling older voters who support him and not adequately sampling young voters who tend not to support Biden. I hear you. That they always end up saying that, and then last election cycle and even during Obama, the majority of voters you can count on are older. So when they're looking at consistent voters, that's how they're always going to poll. I think a lot of the younger voters that, support him, or that will ultimately support the Dem or whatever will, eventually if they move anywhere, it'll be from Biden or from Sanders to Warren, perhaps. We'll see during the debates. I think, that'll be a big turning point this month. What's happening, Mike from Milwaukee? Biden has too much baggage, and during the debate, they will eat his lunch. We need new blood. I don't know that, look at who's in office right now as far as baggage. We need more parties, too. No more electoral college. It traps us into a two-party system. I think the shift away from the electoral party is a great idea. It's a decades-long process unless the states deal with that. And it's a fine, 20-year strategy for both I think for Democrats in general, but not, maybe not the party, because they'll just work within that strategy for a long time. Because I actually think per person, this is why Dems do well with the popular vote. And sometimes the electoral college can, is something we always have to finagle. large population centers, a lot of times voting Democratic. We'll see, how they feel about it as a party shifting away from the Electoral College. But I do think that, individual Dems feel very strongly that can go. And more than likely the shift will come from a state alliance, states agreeing amongst themselves that they will start giving their electoral votes to the popular vote winner. And then if you can reach a mass consensus amongst the states, it almost becomes like a ratification where you hit 25 states. It will be the tipping point towards the rest of them. And you argue, like, why are you giving yours to the nationwide loser when it's a federal office? And that becomes, and then you can state by state start fighting for that. I think that's ultimately the long-term strategy. Ranked choice voting, absolutely. SoCal Susie, that's a great idea. Forget Biden has ran before a couple of times. He's going to be fine. Yeah. Younger voters went for President Obama over Clinton, and the nominee in 2000 Aunt Ross, Senator Warren will eat Biden's lunch. I think that's possible as far as her being enjoyable on the stage. The question is there energy presidential to people? And this is not a male-female thing. This is like, how people perceive her as a cheerleader for her ideas, or as a great senator fighting for these things versus the kind of tamped down
60 seconds.
Thank you. Normalcy that voters might be looking for. And again, this is within my issue with any of the candidates right now is within a 1% margin of each other. I think Warren is a terrific candidate. I think it will be a personality decision on her part, Biden knows the issues well. I do not believe he will push off
30 seconds.
Okay. Yes. Yes, the wind is ripping here behind me. And yes, it's a palm tree. I'm on the second floor. So you know. Agreed on the runoff voting.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out on me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
Well, I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
I will say one of the upsides of having such a smart and capable chat room of people is that we get to have a decent conversation in there that has stays within the bounds most of the time of us discussing the issues themselves and the difference between the candidates and and the like. And I think Carl, who's one of our moderators and is fantastic, I think one of what he said I think was really important, which is interesting, which is he just wrote, Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris are making my life very difficult at the moment. I hate being forced to not vote for one of them in the primary. That is the situation in reality that the Democrats find themselves in. My issues with anybody in the primary is usually within 1-2%. Like I have mostly it's methodology. I think most, if not all, the Democrats agree on what the priorities should be. I think there was a lot of the other big flail about foot shooting moment was the Jay Inslee are we going to have a climate debate issue with the DNC that became a big story for about 24 hours, and the wigging out
some
about
calls on Dems attacking other Dems.
Well, we'll get there in just 1 second because I think they might actually have something on this one as well. I want to throw this into the mix. Is that Jay Inslee was petitioning the DNC to have a climate debate amongst the 2020 candidates, and the DNC's position is climate change is not debatable. We all believe in it. And if you go and participate with somebody who doesn't believe it's real and consider that to be part of your Democratic debates, you don't get to be in the other debates.
There you go.
You don't go messing around giving the other side more voice than they deserve. We're not going to even play the game that climate change is a debatable concept. What are you talking about? And during the upcoming debates, climate is going to be one of the main issues discussed in all of the upcoming debates, guaranteed, because, not just because it's important, but also because the president took us out of the Paris Accord and has no interest in taking a serious look at the environmental damage of pollution and chlorofluorocarbons and, like CO2 and other greenhouse gases. That's important enough on its face. But also each of them has a plan for how they want to affect it, especially Elizabeth Warren, I suppose, since she has a plan for everything, which is wonderful. So of course it's going to be addressed during the debates. Are you high? Like it's going to be an integral part, because the Democrats are going to want to, one of the areas where they can distance themselves from the president and establish a positive agenda is on how we're going to fix issues in regard to climate change and pollution. So the idea that we need the Democrats, I don't know, having a climate change debate specifically exclusive of all the other issues, as if each of their plans and their ideas about what needs to be done, which, by the way, with all of them includes rejoining the Paris Accord and reestablishing the plans that were in place that had a strategy to lower the amount of fossil fuel usage and greenhouse gases by 2030, a strategy that multiple countries had agreed on, that was functioning, that arguably still is. Trump is still in the process of trying to dismantle the internal parts of it. And again, when we sign on to these treaties, these are cooperative agreements. And just because we stop doing it doesn't mean everybody else does. So all of the Democratic candidates running believe that climate change is a serious threat and needs to be handled. They all vary probably within 2% of how to solve it. So the idea that there's actually a fight going on around climate change on the Democratic side and that it got any ground whatsoever is indicative of a greater problem than climate change itself. The illusion that there is a fight going on. If you want to talk about fake news, so that's the part that digs in with me on this whole thing. So twice this week, we had a hashtag Dems in disarray storyline float all over social media, get way up into the news cycle, that was effectively nothing. A garbage argument. A simple shift in policy. And to me, like, if somebody goes up there and says, climate change is not where our focus should be or whatever, they will say that during the regular debates, and they will be off the debate stage in 20 before the commercial break. If they even made it. There are questions amongst strategies that these that people running have, like Andrew Yang's universal basic income push, for example, that differ in strength with other people, that is worth debating as how the mechanic works, how you fund it, all that kind of stuff. That is, by the way, bigger than a debate stage, will play out over months leading up to the primary. Because the digestion of the concept and the ability to create something as large as that, Representative Tlaib, released her UBI concept. I think maybe 2 weeks ago she introduced the bill, and it's sort of trickling into the news cycle. Finally, there's a conversation to be had there about doing it, the value of doing it, whether it's a good idea, and whether or not, and how you fund it, right? There are variants on how you could fund it. I personally believe in a 5-cent stock trade tax coming and going. If you buy or sell a stock and it costs over $10, there's a 5-cent tax going both ways. Think of it as a VAT tax. on all stock trades. We're talking billions of dollars in revenue, especially from day traders, and lessening the need for them to monkey around mechanically in the stock market, buying and selling stuff in the same day. I don't buy the liquidity argument that I heard this week for why that's a good thing. I think that's ridiculous. I think investment should have some basis in it. You should stick around if you invest in a company, it's because you should believe in what they're doing and that they think that they will be successful doing that thing, instead of like, I'll shave a nickel off of it before lunch and and another nickel off after lunch. It's ridiculous. And SoCal Suzuki says the stock trade tax doesn't have to be as much as 5 cents. 1 cent would generate millions. I agree. And my position used to be a 1 cent tax. I am now at a 5 cent tax because the stock market is at 24,000 or what have you. It was when I started pushing this idea, it was basically when Obama entered office, and it was 6,400. If you'll recall, Obama brought the stock market from 6,400 to 19,000. There you go. So oh crap, we're already at the break. Look at me. I yapped for a minute. Johnny, you have to interrupt me sometimes. You just have to dive in there, man.
You still got 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Did he? Well, no, because it's.
Well, I was running around trying to find some more information on the potential protests.
Oh, well, thank you.
We were searching for some corroborating sources, and we haven't found any yet.
Tell the boss man to send us the information, the elusive.
He sent us an article from 2 days ago that is not alluding to any protests. So.
Right, gotcha. Well, and here's the thing: we can protest ourselves right now on it because I think it's a mistake. But in terms of, let's just grab one of the callers right now because we got enough time to take one.
Line 3.
Cool.
You got that for me, Mr. Devin? Line 3, Mike from Cleveland. Yeah. Hello.
Hey, Al, it's been a while.
Yeah. How are you?
Cool. Anyway, I wanted to bring up another instance of Democratic infighting.
Sure.
There have been some people on the internet who have attacked Elizabeth Warren from the left, saying that she is a capitalist war hawk and that the only one who passes their purity test is Tulsi Gabbard, who they think of as a great peacenik.
Right. Yeah, and this also came around the time that people were getting mad at her for charging what she charged to work as a legal consultant, especially around where she had been. She wasn't a lawyer, but she was as a professor who taught, in the area of consumer, protections and around that. She was being brought in to consult on things. And that somehow she was getting lawyer fees for not being a lawyer, which is not the case. None of these people thought they were paying a lawyer, I don't think. But secondly, are we really going to question a woman making money using expertise she went to school for that took a lot of schooling and ran up big student loans, by the way, to get, and start hating on her for that?
You know what? If somebody invoices somebody and the invoice gets paid, then they're worth it. You can only charge what you're worth.
That's right.
You can only charge what people will pay, and anybody else who doesn't realize how that works should not throw stones.
Right. And if they can make money making that argument, they should be able to do that as well. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. But Elizabeth Warren herself, like the idea that somehow she's a dirty capitalist all of a sudden because she got hired as an expert in a field she's an expert in, as a woman, especially in this day and age, when we're arguing that women need to, we're arguing about income inequality, we're arguing about equal pay, and this is the strike point for her. What? Get out of here with that stuff. We'll be back. More callers after this. And pass the claim bankruptcy on student loans older than 10 years bill, then I can invest in stocks, pay the tax, and poof, millennials fix the U.S. debt. The issue with that, Ellie, is that the student loans, depending on what they cost, is if I don't know what the standards on claiming bankruptcy if you've had a loan for more than 10 years. And based on what you got the loan to study and whether or not there was ever a chance to make the kind of money to pay the loan back with the degree you got. And then you have a situation where schools, universities can effectively start jacking up tuitions even more because they know, if you can't pay it off in 10 years, you can just dump the debt. That's the thing they're trying to batten down the hatches on. Again, I'm more for salary related loans, loan repayment, those kind of things. We've talked about that a little bit on here, but now I'm catching up in the chat. Do you guys ever hear about Alec Baldwin says this every year that he's not going to do Donald Trump anymore. And he still does.
60.
Thank you. The current POTUS waffles in seconds on Twitter. Yeah, exactly. That, again, I don't want to hear about the fact that the Hyde Amendment came in the 90s based on some, trade back and forth on trying to get funding for low-income women to get access to abortion. And this was a mitigatory amendment to allow religious conservatives a way out decades ago. And the fact that it shifted because they are not acting in good faith and eliminating those other sources.
30.
Thank you. Time changed. The legal circumstance around the Hyde Amendment changed in the last 3 weeks. It did. Changed my mind. I want to talk a little bit about the demonetization of some fairly awful people on here and the sort of the YouTube world. I was Hal's first caller today, and the guy.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I want to thank Richard, our first caller today. And he's, I think a local Chicago listener. He knows very much that Peter, the guy who called in and swore last week and comes in and gets into, obviously has a bone to pick with Dick K and can't wait to get to Dick's show after mine to start it. I'm going to,
yeah. You guys dumped it anyway, so it wasn't really my fault.
Right, yeah. You guys could have just...
I think it wasn't your fault.
Could have just censored me, right? Why are you guys so mean? But It reminds me of, Spinal Tap going, they were still booing them.
They're still booing him.
Yeah, when we came on.
We had to make up for his set with our set.
Yeah.
They're still booing him.
Right, yeah. I think we have another caller.
We do, yeah. We've got a few.
Cool.
Whichever one's been holding the longest.
Yeah, let's give some people who've been sitting in there.
We got line 2, Ann.
Hi. I just wanted to point out a couple of mistakes that Joe Biden has made. Bankruptcy bill.
Okay.
And the Capital Commission.
Okay, how do those and I think it's important. How do they compare to his current positions as far as his campaign today?
Well, it's really hard to tell because I think once Joe is unscripted, he's going to have some real problems. I don't know where he's coming. If you want to know the truth, he's so scripted. And I think once he's on the debate board, the other candidates are going to clean his clock.
Well, we'll see, I suppose. His current ideas about bankruptcy, in terms of, obviously, he was instrumental with Obama in creating the ACA and shepherding the ACA through to eliminate one of the issues that was not addressed in the bankruptcy bill, which is medical bankruptcies, as an out for that. So that would arguably be one of the solutions to, his support for the bankruptcy initially and a cleanup of that after the fact.
Well, the problem with the bankruptcy bill is I can go to a casino and run up a $70,000 debt and get it forgiven, but my student loans wouldn't be. He has helped create indebtedness, servitude for thousands of students. I mean, it was a bad move. Other countries, they invest in their kids for college. We eat our seed corn, and Joe was part of that, and he was more than willing to negotiate with the Republicans to cut Social Security. I got real concerns about him. I'm sorry.
I hear you. And we'll see how that plays out in terms of if he's asked those questions on the debate stage. Currently, his policy positions in terms of that are in line with the baseline of the Democratic Party currently. So those arguably are addressed in that. So
and we'll see how it shakes out with the debate. But thanks, Hal. You have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the call. And again,
thank you.
Again, that's how you do it. I have zero problem with her dealing with her policy issues with him, and if they've shifted the support that she might have for him after the fact, if she decides, certainly if he becomes the nominee, I think the majority of callers like her will probably end up voting for him, certainly against the alternative of Donald Trump. But at the same time saying, in the past you've supported these kind of things. I have a problem with that. You've changed your position. Am I to believe that you changed your position because the party changed their position and you are, as a representative of the greater, group of of Democrats in the country representing that change? Or are you, simply doing it because the winds tell you to? Now, I think, the issue with Biden in the past, quote unquote, talking out of, the wrong side of his mouth and being in danger of committing gaffes. One of the reasons, where those gaffes come from is when he says something that he believes that's not in line currently with the thinking beyond, any concerns that you have. So, that would be a situation where you may not agree with him or you may think what he said was wrong, but it's his position, really coming out beyond his. And one of the reasons why he's being more scripted is because the ground under Democrats' feet is changing regularly as well. And I think you're going to see this with a bunch of folks that as certain policies gain ground, like universal basic income, which I'm curious to see how that will grow within the in the Democratic primary season, and whether that becomes a real part of the conversation or it becomes the sort of redheaded stepchild of policy. And, we will see. And I personally have my own issues with it and concerns about it. Although I support the baseline concept, I'm not sure it will be successful. It may be one of those situations where, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And that's, I think, what a lot of people's concerns about it are. But I'm curious to see as that starts to float. You've only got 2 supporters of it currently, I think, in the Democratic field, in a genuine sense. And then, I don't think it's part of Sanders' plan so far. I may be wrong about that. But again, that's because the ground is shifting under the feet of all these folks, and a lot of them are adopting these ideas as they come in. Like, that's a great idea. I think I would certainly be good with that. Climate is a big part of that. As people start putting forward ideas to solve the climate issue, look for every Democrat to basically go, I agree with that, and that's part of my plan too. Why wouldn't I do that? That's a terrific idea. And because none of these candidates, by the way, are dreaming up these ideas on their own. These, they've listened to economists, they've listened to environmentalists, they've listened to the people who specialize in these areas, and they've thought, okay, of the 5 ideas that these folks have, this one I think is I can get through and will be the most functional. I'm going to adopt that as part of my policy. Now, Warren may be the exception. She may have drafted some of her economic policies around consumer protections herself, which is terrific. And I'm curious to see how, the level of originality in almost, because none of Donald Trump's ideas were original. They just, came from either the Heritage Foundation or a bunch of Germans in the 30s. And so that's important. Let's grab another call.
I was trying to figure out how to get that to be a Nazi joke.
Yeah, I did it.
Line 1, I think. Mm-hmm. Peggy from Virginia.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to call, I guess it's in defense of Joe Biden, but it's really in defense of myself. I am as pro-choice as anybody, going back to 1973, but it does seem to me that we've had the Hyde Amendment around for almost as long. And I just kind of stopped questioning it until recently, when it became only too obvious that the idea is not trying to limit and forge some sort of compromise, but just to shut everything down, to make it absolutely impossible. And it seems to me if they're going to change the rules on the alleged pro-life side, we've got to look at at things that we've always accepted. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm too old, maybe Joe Biden's too old, but
well, you won't get any ageism here.
To change on this,
right?
Well, you've got to give us time to change on this, and I honestly just came to a different position last week. And
right. Well, so did the ground underneath you, though. Yeah. So did the policy. Yeah. So did the other side. It's one of those things like if you're playing a legit game and you and I have agreed on the rules, and then all of a sudden I'm like you start breaking the rules, then I'm not playing the game with you anymore, and you can't go, this guy's breaking the rules. He walked away from the table. He's not even playing by the rule. He's not even playing anymore. Like, well, of course I'm not, because you've changed the entire game. And that is incredibly important to this conversation. And by the way, you will see that both, in Democrats in dealing with how Donald Trump is behaving, and unfortunately the tossing out of norms and behavior, which I'm a big I'm a fan of making sure that we have comedy and balance and listening to other people. I don't believe in, shutting people out on a lot of fronts. But occasionally when those people are not playing in good faith on the other side, that's when you're like, no, I'm going to drop all pretense that this is actually an even playing field and that you get the concessions that I was giving you. That's the other thing. It's one of those situations where you've given tax breaks to a football team, and then you find out that the owner of the team is spending those tax breaks in a massage parlor outside of Mar-a-Lago, and you're like, hang on a second. This isn't benefiting the community like I thought. I appreciate you calling in, by the way, and you will never hear from me any ageism around people's thoughts or whatever. I think wisdom is underrated in our society, and I think some people rightly have an idea that they might tap the brakes on change occasionally just simply so it's done right, or that it actually stays instead of this vacillation between backlashes, which is what we've been in for a couple of decades now. I blame the Iraq War personally, and I think a lot of people have PTSD from AIDS, 9/11, and the 2008 crash. I think a lot of people are carrying that panic around with them, and people who've seen a lot more of that have a tendency, I feel, to be more patient with that change. And you got to give them credit for that. So I thank you for calling in. We'll be back right after this. Indeed, Talk Soup, it's true. This is more like Trump soup. I should just start calling the show Trump Soup. I mean, we'll get way more trolls, but what are you going to do? There, I've changed the name of the show to Trump Soup. Ta-da. What's happening, P. Chris? Good to see you. I've even evolved because I feel a woman has a right to her own body and do away with the amendment. I'm 52, so it's possible to learn from your mistakes. Yeah, and also, again, if the legal situation changes, then you have every right to go, all right, the concessions made are no longer valuable. I hope not. I just had a birthday, and I'm getting a lot more AARP flyers in the mail. I'll still take you. I'll still love you when you're 64, Brad. If Trump was made into Soylent Green, they would have to recall that batch what Trump soup was. Oh, yeah. Trump soup, you're soaking in it, yeah. Hey, Classy, what's happening? Hello. Soylent Orange, yeah. It's a frightening thought, Carl, I have to say. I need to make these a little bigger so people can see them. These are, I don't know why they're tiny today.
$60 seconds.
Excellent. I'm 30 and I didn't get any AARP stuff yet. Well, it'll be a while. Oh. Nacho Tube thinks that Elizabeth Warren was our last caller and that she now that one's too big. I don't know what happened. It's crazy. That she called in
30.
She's her own Bannon or whatever. What was his name? Barron? John Barron? That was? This is Donald Trump. John Barron calling in, and I don't think you understand how much money I'm worth.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So, while the circular firing squad was machine gunning each other's feet on the Democratic side, the president created this fake Mexican tariff war, sent the stock market into turmoil and then back again, which, by the way, I also think in relation to my earlier thought about, companies benefiting from Donald Trump, there's a bunch of folks that like it when he takes a pot shot at businesses in this country or the future of businesses in this country, and they know full well that they can basically on a 2-week sell and buy make a ton of money. This, it's insane how easy it is.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, for some of these guys to just throw money at the stock market whenever he, crashes it for a week, and then buy the same, basically do a big, buy low, sell high inversion when the stock market rebounds. Their stock will be worth it. So they just basically just sit there with capital and wait, which none of us can do except these larger investors. Wait for him to throw a monkey wrench into the whole thing. Know that it'll drop 1,000 points. Look at tech stocks, things full well by looking at their, at their actual, stock reports are incredibly undervalued, if anything, and then just hang out for them to go back up, sell them, sit on that capital again, and wait for Trump to do it again, because he will. So let's grab another caller. I know we've got
we got one more out here. We've got Keith on line 3.
Excellent. Hey Keith, welcome.
Hal, you're an amazing person.
Oh, thank you. I try.
An amazing person. I like your stuff. I listen to you all the time. I'm in the middle, so that's the way I am, dude. You cannot look at a report and know by reading it that anything's going to go up. The SEC's going to. It's not a good place to be. So
no, I know that, but you can look at the value of a company and what its stock dividends, for example, are, and know that it isn't worth the drop that just happened. That's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? You can tell a momentary fluctuation. You can take advantage of those. They do them all the time. I mean, there's computers set up to enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, I hear where you're coming from.
Right. Conversation for conversation for a different area. What I wanted to talk about with you is you mentioned earlier about specific trading and how, you don't like the short-term trading stuff. The SEC's already put in a rule for short-term traders. You got to have 25,000 or you can't play in the game. Mm-hmm. That's where the thing should start, because from that period of time, you really want to quantify, people that are going to hold the stock for less than 20 minutes.
Right.
Because there's a lot of new avenues to trade that people are learning how to trade. And literally, I bought a stock and then I sold it. Oh, I finally did it, because they haven't been able to. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to find investments to make and purchase that make sense. And it would be unfair to cut them out or penalize them for a tax when they're literally just trying to learn how to do it.
Oh, I agree. I think it should be investors below a certain point, for example, or originally it was the idea was that an under $10 stock, for example, would be exempt of this, and certainly all penny stocks and those kind of things. And the volume of stock would have something to do with the holdings that you actually have, the volume of stock that you have as a person. And the idea that I'm talking about these hedge fund related, computer-based day trading flip machines that are dangerous and have triggered a couple of accidental near crashes a couple of times. That this would be a form of financially regulating them, and like a stabilization tax. Think of it that way.
Yeah, if you have a net cap going into the stock and you're like, you're flipping, you're investing with total available capital of $1 billion or even 500 million.
Right.
Well, yeah, dude, you can afford to pay a nickel.
Yes.
But if you're just getting started and you had to put up 25,000 just to figure out how to day trade, and then all of a sudden you're worried about, oh my God, it went up 10 cents, and I had to answer the phone, and now it's down 15. I don't want to lose my investment.
Right.
And you hit the door, and you're going to pay an extra nickel. That's like, I'm never doing this again.
I understand that. I would say a number would even be higher than that. If you have seed capital on 100,000, for example, on the baseline, if you're just seeding it on that as an individual, or as a day trader aligned with a group where you work amongst a bunch of other day traders to get access to the machinery, buy your way into it, for example, as a way to start developing, eventually growing to your own brokerage, for example, which would, I think, be a goal for some folks like that, that there can be a tiered approach aspect to that. Absolutely. I think if you have a, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, and here's the thing I'm a student of the market, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what you really have to be aware of is the ability for individuals to purchase stocks that they may like at a reasonable price has gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, stocks are not splitting with the degree of efficiency that they used to split 5-6 years ago.
Right.
You can't buy Amazon. Facebook's over $100. Roku's over $100. I mean, everything that looks good or looks enticing, or like you said, has a good story. Some of the new ones where the meat is like fake meat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That one's, and you're like, oh darn, I can only buy 2 shares. And you feel worthless,
Yes.
It's like, oh, never mind.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, you have to play it almost like a stock market as an individual investor if you're trying to do that kind of growth, or you're trying to focus on that as your main way of making a living. There's so much that keeps individual investors out of the market that should be addressed as well. I mean, I think these are companion issues, to each other. But my issue is with this kind of flow in and out, quick trading, day trade aspect that is done through effectively. Watch, the march towards AI in this area is going to be the most troubling part of it over the next 5 years, because even as an individual, you cannot compete with that, the back and forth on that, and that's my concern too. And one of the ways you do that is a stabilization tax. But go ahead.
Right, stabilization. And you might also want to consider going back to fractions, because the fact that you can decimalize the bid out to like 7 places, where most retail people aren't aware of that, puts you at a distinct disadvantage to being able to just say, I want to buy this, and then all of a sudden, it's up $1.50, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Because some jackass got in there at 10 cents of a penny under you and took all the stock away from you.
Right. Well, and that's the problem with the clean meat issues that are coming out. Because clean meat's going to be a huge global. Quit it, Johnny. It's going to be a globally shifting technology over the next few years. There are 2 areas, and I'll address them in upcoming shows. Especially, I'm doing a documentary about one, but specifically, the clean meat area is going to be a massive global shift in the production of food over time. And those companies, it is worth it to large investors to simply corner the market on those stocks out of the gate. So these guys can do even if they're unsuccessful, even if that company's assets are sold off to another group, as a major investor, you have control over that. So they will jump in there with amounts of money that no one on an individual level can compete with. They can set their initial public offering at a ridiculously high amount comparatively to what their stock is worth for the next 5 years, knowing full well that investment point, these big companies, they're just making themselves a target for buyout effectively. And that's a tough position to be in.
The same thing goes for synthetic cannabis too.
Yep.
Yeah. The same thing goes for synthetic cannabis too. I'll email you some stuff that
please
will pull your stocks off.
Yeah, bookhal.
I don't want to take you away from the bulk of your show because
it's
probably losing listeners now, and that would be a bad thing.
No, you've drifted the conversation in the chat room around this.
Caller we've had all day.
No, it's totally good, and I appreciate where you're coming from, because this is one of those things where it gets left off the list of kitchen table issues, because a lot of people, as they start to climb up the ladder, Investment is one of the ways that they do it, but investment is always talked about as if it's a tool of the elite simply because it has been. And then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where nobody can get in. And part of the value of this is, is the necessity of making sure that people have an opportunity to shift between, to move up these strategic ladders. What's happening now on a stock level, an investment level, is rungs are being removed by people who don't want the competition. And that's important. I appreciate the call. I really do. Yep. I thank you, and I don't mind us dealing with these issues in the same way. And I think the same thing will probably happen when we talk about the universal basic income concept over the next few months. Keith. Yeah. Appreciate it. And so
we do have one more.
Okay, let's grab them real quick because we got time before the break. Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, we have Elaine on line 1.
Elaine. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Hal.
Hi, thank you for calling.
I'm a retired stockbroker, and I totally agree that there needs to be some sort of taxation on stock trades. But I also think that the worst thing that has happened to volatility was in 1981 when Reagan did away with the short-term capital gains. And if we were to bring back short-term capital gains, that would eliminate a lot of the day trading.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're right, because the problem is bailing on profits when there have been none, because you simply and it also, that leads to people inflating a stock price. Even what's his name, Kramer, the dude with the sell button, was caught doing that, manipulating stocks for his own benefit. And there's a bunch of those folks, that do that, and that's dangerous long term. It especially when you talk about like unions and people putting their retirements in the stock market, knowing that over time it's a good growth choice, but knowing also that based on the timing, if somebody comes in and scuttles the market, all those people can lose their money because they were months or weeks away from taking their winning, their profits out, right? Whereas these day traders can come and go with it a bunch of times, and if they're seated long enough, it's like a dude at a blackjack table. They're just playing the numbers on it. You're absolutely right. I think that the instinct. I'm curious if that is anywhere in the kind of green the reads of Elizabeth Warren's plans around stock market issues, or if that has made its way into anybody's stuff, the reinstitution of short-term capital gains. Because I would argue you could make a real case for raising the short-term capital gains tax rate and dropping the long-term capital gains rate by 2% in trade, because it would entice people to invest longer, which would add stability and make sure people, were investing in the long term in companies they actually believed in, instead of just like, well, the economy's going to crap, let's all invest in Pepsi, because people buy a lot of soda when things are bad. And it would also de-incentivize the short-term trading based not on the value or worth of a company or what it's contributing or whether or not you think it's got legs, but based on whether or not it's popular for the day or the week or the month. Knowing full well that it'll also collapse. So you can, you're aware of something that's coming on, technologically that's just over the horizon. You know about it because you got friends in government like Donald Trump. They've told you that a law is going to get passed or a new tech is coming to the country. And you can bet on the fact that in 6 weeks, you could put a put on the stock you just bought and guarantee that you will get a win. That's the problem. That's what we always have to eliminate as much as possible. I appreciate you calling in, by the way. Thank you so much for adding that to the conversation. Yeah, absolutely. We got to take a break. Yeah. Can I just say, by the way, we've had more women calling in than we've ever had in the history of the show, and I'm so excited about that. Can I just say that? Like, I think it might even be even.
Love it.
Right. God forbid. So thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Go to infotainmentwars.com. For real. That's the URL I bought so that we could get traffic. Infotainmentwars.com. You can find us on YouTube. Like and subscribe. It helps us out. We are ice skating uphill. Even the demonetized right-wing channels make more money than we do. Become a Patreon subscriber. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Help us out. Oops. What am I doing? Won't even let me type. Today's show is just zipping by, folks. Yes, thank you, Hal Vickery. And we got one more. We lost one Patreon, one patron, I think. I think they just kind of jumped in to get the a QAF script, and then once they got it, they just bailed. I got to set the standard. You got to stay in for a couple of months before that. Yeah, so hit the like, folks, please. Dink, dink. Oh, I put it underneath. I'm layering my little orange things. It helps to have topics that inspires many callers to call, and Hal never fails with the topics. Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Yeah, I fixed the I thought I fixed the audio sync. Should be back in. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Check. Seems to be okay. Maybe. Could be. Possibly. Hard to say. Yes, there will be a happy ending this week. Hooray!
$60.
Cool. Do we have our happy ending song? Because I think we can actually...
Yeah, when you want the happy ending song to play?
Well, I'll ask you for... Johnny can trigger it or whatever, let you know. We'll just throw it in when I say... Whatever, we'll just kind of, it's a soft roll into it. You don't have to worry about me going, drop it now.
I see how it says the happy song, so I'm guessing that's what you want there.
Well, hopefully. God knows how they list things there. But
we'll
yes.
Find out that's 30 seconds of Johnny screaming.
That's right. Just,
30 seconds, by the way.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll get, where did I put that? Was that down in here? Yeah. Oh, that's adorable. Oh, yeah, they're doing all right. They're getting a little shape. I got that little flat spot under the triceps working, which is nice. It's good. Working on it. Yes, smash the like. Thanks, Joey. I appreciate that. Just so people don't think I did that randomly. I did kind of do it randomly, but you know what I mean. Oh, yes. Everybody loves a happy ending. Yes, that's right. That's right, Carl. You had sweet tea yesterday. Go easy, EO. I'll make it. I'll dial it back. Oh, man, we're not connected. Hold on. We lost our connection. 3, 2, 1. 1 second. Right at the happy ending, too. Go figure. This is how this works. Did I really lose? Did Chicago really lose me? Go to the YouTube, Chicago. I think I lost you on the connection there. I don't know why, but it might be one of those restart the... Oh, what happened? Yep, we lost Chicago. Dagnabbit, right at the end. We were doing so well. And none of it, by the way, is the YouTube stuff, for the record. Like, we're totally fine in that regard. I'm going to, and this is, since it's Devin's first day, I'm glad that he gets to experience the flailing mess that is the tie line for whatever reason. And I'm trying to reconnect. I will do that real quick. I'm going to call into my own show. That's fun. I always love when we do that. Hold on. We'll try to do that. Hold on. This is what happens when I get too many callers and I like, Hey, it's Hal Sparks calling into my own show. We're trying to reconnect. Hey, it's Hal Sparks. Oh, calling into my own show. Never mind. And then, of course, that's when I come back on the air. Never mind. I'm fine. Here I am. I'm back on the line. You can hear me. Yay. Oh, my God. I was like, I'm not waiting any longer. And right when we're going to do the happy ending, that'll teach us to try and do something good for everybody.
You played the song at least.
You did?
Uh-huh.
Oh, even before I did it? That's so sad, and I didn't even get to hear it. That's just...
Oh, it was great. I'll redact it for you.
That's nothing like it. That's just... That's not... Why are you even... What's wrong with you? That's terrible. Well, obviously, your song
sounds like people.
Your song recreations are not indicative of a happy ending in any way. I'm just saying. It's actually quite depressing.
All right.
I'm just saying. The hard part with happy endings these days, for me, is that I have a generalized rule with the happy endings that that I don't want them to be at anyone's expense. To be a true happy ending, it has to be a piece of good news that doesn't limit that isn't it, me making fun of somebody else. Like otherwise, all of our happy ending would just be like Donald Trump's face plants over the course of a week. You know what I mean? Because it's fun and happy to watch him make mistakes. The kind, by the way, that don't have long-lasting impact.
Right.
That's what I mean. And by the way, chat room is ubiquitous in there. This is not a happy ending. Johnny, please stop. That is terrible. The best part of Johnny on the show is the banter with Hal, according to Hal Vickery. So there's a happy ending right there. We finally got one person who likes you on the show.
Yay!
That is happy that you and I get adrift. Don't do it again though. You're pushing it. So the tough part, it has to be something, I think, that benefits everybody in general. So this is kind of interesting too. This one I like. There's a group called the Brooklyn Red Caps. They're a long...
It's not like a donkey punch or something, is it?
No.
Give me like a Brooklyn Red Cap.
No, that sounds terrible. No.
Rusty trombone.
Knock it off. We only use those in reference to Lindsey Graham. That's the rule. We can only bring up a Turkish breakfast when it comes to Lindsey Graham because he's earned them. So, no, this is a story from the New York Times. Cycling's next breakout star may come from a precinct better known for basketball, Brooklyn. In 2017, the cycling publication Velo News pegged Josh Hartman, the 21-year-old who grew up in East New York, as a trending American talent in track sprinting. He grew up, let's see, I'll get to the part of it, but the cycling group is an all-black cycling group that's made history for the very first time. So go Red Caps. That's all I'm saying. You can go look up the story on your own. I don't want to pack our entire 4 minutes with one story, and I don't want to limit the amount of singing that Johnny can do. But I will say this: today is World Oceans Day, and so there are. I think the happy ending should be about, on the one hand, even though the United States is delinquent when it comes to world pollution in our way, we also
we'll catch up.
Yes, we will. The next president will obviously slingshot us towards being in a better position, as long as we all vote. And yeah, but one of the things about it is that there's a lot of people working very hard all the time for World Oceans Day. If you don't, you can use the hashtag Today World Oceans Day to support it or whatever. There's obviously ways that you can help, which is, reusing a bag when you go to the grocery store, not taking, using anything plastic that you don't need. It may be the upside of the Chinese tariff war is that, we buy less just plastic crap.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, just maybe, one of the things you can do is if something is made out of plastic and you don't need it, don't get it.
Clap your hands.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Do what? Clap your hands. Right. But there are organizations all over the place. I think the happy ending would be for all of us to recognize that we need the oceans more than they need us.
Yeah.
And therefore,
we're talking about climate change and saving the world. We're talking about saving humans, people.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of people who think that, that there's an acceleration point where, we pollute the place for a while, but it's to get to a point where we never have to again and we become the least polluting animal on the planet, besides dung, I suppose. Are leaving behind waste in that regard. And certainly technologically, we will get there at some point. It just depends on at whose expense it will be. But there are aquariums all over the place you can go visit and learn new respect for them. You can also donate it. Every aquarium in your, in every major city has a way to donate to clean up oceans and that kind of stuff. Portions of their, money they take in is benefiting that. The worldoceansday.org is the website. They have a social media action center. I'm going to tweet that out right now on my Twitter feed and put it on my Facebook page, the Hal Sparks Fang page, which now has an HSRPM community on it that you can go to, that I'm just starting, which is pretty cool. Thank you guys for listening today. Stick around for the post show, or I guess you can listen on the radio in Chicago and hear Dick K talk about the protest we couldn't find, and have Peter call in and get mad at him about it.
We're going to take away all the articles that Lady B handed him.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So, and thank you, Devin, for being with us today and having your trial by fire, experiencing at least one tie line dropout and handling it with aplomb and doing quite well. So thank you. We look forward to seeing you next week. You're awesome. Feel free to interject on occasion, and we'll have a powwow midweek with everybody to figure out how we can decide whose voice is who, because we're all going to sound alike by the end of this, I can tell. All right, thanks so much. We'll be back right next week, and take care and listen to Dick A and hang around on YouTube if you want. Infotainmentwars.com. We'll be back next week. Here we go. Peter will be calling Uncle Dick today, believe it. Oh, no doubt. So yeah, let me tweet this out real quick, if I may. Get in the game.
Securities Inspector General has found expired food and dilapidated bathrooms during unannounced visits to 4 immigration detection facilities.
What a surprise.
Correspondent Jessica Schneider.
Yeah, so they're going straight to news on there. And hi, chat room. Hold on one second. Dink, dinky, 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 ding, dinky, 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 ding, dink. And we'll jump back in. All right, get in the game. Hashtag HSRPM. Whoops. Oh. I forget which keyboard I'm typing on. Dagnabbit. Done. Excellent. Now I'm all yours, chat room. What's happening? We have a Cam, I think, wants to make a little guest star appearance with you guys and come in and visit and say hi. So we'll make sure that he gets to come in. And I don't know, those of you that are patrons got to see his opinions on Donald Trump's Guns for Donuts program, I think it was. I was trying to work it out. Like, bless his heart, he sees so much news between me and his mom that piecing it all together with what's happening in his world, and it all kind of gets swirled into this soup of understanding that happens when you're 8 years old. It's so great. Yes, Richard was the caller today. He was great. So we will. I'll bring him up in a moment to say hi. And oh, there he is. Wait, Cam? Or is that a cat? I can't ever tell. Who's there? Who is it? Who could it be? I see hair. Wait a minute. Camden? Is that you? Hello? No? Might have been a cat. I can never tell. The timing is amazing. I'm up to 47 Patreon subscribers. Hooray! We had 6 3 months ago. So thank you guys. From the bottom of my heart. If the cat talks back, we're in danger or whatever. Yeah, so let's see. How did Cam like Endgame? He loved it. I would love to have him explain to you what happened. Because his understanding of who lived and died and why and what happened and the mix of time travel and it's a lot for an 8-year-old to kind of gather and digest and put out, and so it's great to hear his angle on it was pretty spectacular. I'm just saying. And we're going to go see, Toy Story 19 or whatever is coming out, and then Secret Life of Pets 2, which is now with 100% less Louis C.K. apparently. And let's see, what else? And Godzilla King of Monsters, he wants to see that. So that's going to be the one. If Hal has twins and they shared the top bunk, would they be dual overhead cams? Yes, you do, Can't Stop Lying. I put it on private. I'll put it back on unlisted if you're going to check it out later. I had to, I just don't want to, I wanted to make sure it doesn't get accidentally out. So give me a little time after the show and I'll reset it. Yeah. Cam turned into a cat, which is entirely possible. You'll go with us to Godzilla? Excellent. Children in their 50s, so you missed the raw honesty. Yes, it's great. Yeah, Ginger would love to hear his review of Endgame. All right, I'll see if we can get him to explain it to us and tell you what they want. Phoenix Rising? Okay, excellent. I'll take that. I'm a fan of the X-Men storylines. It's one of those things, like, I struggle with how they've managed to do it. It's the same thing I struggle with Wolverine, Oh, you're going to go see Secret Life of Pets. Amos Strucks, if all those fans were shrunken and swimming in your bottled water, would we all get drank alive by you? Yes, clearly. How do you know that's not actually happening? This is just iced coffee. Godzilla was fun. That's good to know. On the way to Rocket Man, I heard that guy sang some of the same songs I've recorded. Oh, nice. Oh, thanks, Natalie. Yes, he was adorable. So I will say it's hot stuff. He's got a hot take on stuff. I'm interested in Rocket Man. I'm a little burned on musician biopics these days. I can't believe this will be their final chapter. I just think it's under that version, Richard, because I think the X-Men will probably have some legs under the new Marvel agreements and all that kind of stuff. John Wick 3 is indeed a great movie. I like the entire run of those. Rocky Mountain Mike, I feel like I don't mind the idea of the genre. My problem is just how they're executed. Most of them are done like these, TV movies with better cameras. It's weird. They count on the base of fans going to see them, so they don't mind, if they don't look that great. It's like The Dirt. The Dirt was too clean. We'll see. I don't know what Dark Phoenix has a problem just because Phoenix wasn't explored before she turned into Dark Phoenix, which, was like, is this much of the Phoenix storyline. That's the problem too, is that we go so far, straight to the dark villain version of stuff as if we need more anti-villains. I know I hammer this all the time, but for God's sake, can we just have some heroes? Is it so wrong? It's one of the reasons why I love, what they did with Captain America in the Marvel Universe in general. It was just this desire to do it. This, both between the sort of back and forth with, I want to be a hero, I don't want to be a hero, that happens with most of them. The reluctant hero storyline, which is so dull at this point. And then the other one, which is like, the whole Batman, either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like, what kind of nonsense is that? What? And there were two lines of dialogue that ruined the Nolan movies for me. And I still watch them because I appreciate them as artistic endeavors. I love the acting in them. But that line and the "I'm not wearing hockey pads," like to the dude who's fighting crime in a Batman suit, like, dude, you would be wearing hockey pads if you weren't a billionaire when your parents were killed. I have more sympathy for that dude now than I do for you. You're only wearing like high-tech stuff because your parents died when they owned a defense contractor. Holy smokes. You know what I mean? So the villainy aspect and also that whole let's see. Oh, thanks, Carl. I appreciate that. I think that shows taste and breeding on your part. Yeah, I know. Like there was so much to the Phoenix Saga just about her dealing with her good powers before she went dark. Like, So let's see. That new Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix looks dope. I seriously can't wait for that. How about you, Hal? I hate the idea. I have no interest. He just did that. Was it You Were Never Here, or He Was Never There, or Nobody Was Ever Anywhere? The movie he just did, You Were Never. Is it that? Like, You Were Never There. I watched it. I just don't remember the title because it's kind of an forgettable title. He was like, that movie was great, super weird, but the Joker movie they're making is the exact same movie, and I have a real problem with making your DC. You could tell DC screwed up because their villains are more interesting than their heroes and are better. Batman comics are actually better. I would agree with that. Yep. That was a good movie. You Were Never There. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like it's great. It's effectively the exact same thing as the Joker movie. Like he's even got a mom at home that he takes care of, and he's losing his mind. You know? So like I just have a real problem with that. Like I'm not interested in your villains. It's like if everybody dies in a horror movie, like that's why I never really was interested in the sort of the Rob Zombie angle on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies and that kind of stuff, was the idea that everybody ends up getting killed. It's a fait accompli at the beginning, and I'm, as a viewer, not interested. If you're doing a story about a serial killer or a monster or whatever, it's not a monster or a serial killer if it didn't kill or hurt a bunch of people, right? I'm not interested in seeing their journey. I'm interested in seeing the one who survived and how. What am I doing here? It's my channel. What am I supposed to be doing here? But I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you made it. Welcome aboard. Right now we're post-showing HSRPM, and we're talking a little bit about why superhero movies became largely supervillain movies. DC villains are always better. They're setting up a three Joker story, I hope. Perhaps, but I think it's a sad idea. I think it's lazy writing. Heroes have a lot to deal with. Heroes have a lot, of story that needs to be told, and a lot of times they just don't. They don't. I don't know why, but they just don't bother with it. You know, they I'll just have a. I don't know. I mean, I think Heath Ledger was so great as the Joker, and the concept of a chaotic, a person with rules and structure fighting someone with no rules and no structure is a great back and forth. So there was it automatically made Batman better, because the Joker didn't have a plan, because he was burning this pile of money and stuff. It was so good in that regard. But that line where I think we're destined to do this forever is sort of a treatise line on, the hero villain yin yang back and forth concept that I don't buy into. You know what I mean? Like I don't, like there's this weird undercurrent philosophy for some reason, and I have no idea why. In superhero movies, it's the worst. But it basically works out that if there were no firemen, there would be no arsonists. Vision had the worst version of that, where he goes, that since the Avengers came online and, all these people started showing up with special abilities, the number of world-ending events has increased. I'm not saying there's causation, but there may be a correlation. Well, if there's just a correlation, then shut up, because it has no bearing on anything. And then, secondly, it's like blaming your white blood cells for cancer. You know what I mean? Like maybe, just maybe. I don't think good and evil need each other to exist, because good can be good in the face of challenges. Because there can be good and lack of good based on, let's say, fear and cowardice, as opposed to an actual co-equal negative. You know what I mean? There doesn't need, if there's an active volcano, a good person can die saving people. A good person can, work to make sure that people survive an environmental disaster or an accident. You don't need an evil person there shoving people, off the Titanic door into the water to have the good exist in that situation. You don't. You need, like, good can exist in the face of challenges in and of itself, and gradations of courage and character show up in the face of that. You don't need evil for it to exist. Even police to some degree, you could argue, there is a mitigatory factor against street justice. That there is a balancing point. What was your opinion about Avengers Endgame? I wept like a baby 5 times, and I loved it. And I thought my favorite moment and kind of the unsung moment in it is before ever the cavalry arrives, classic Western style. Before the cavalry arrives, in the form of, Doctor Strange opening the portals and stuff like that. When Cap sutures his own broken arm with his broken shield, and is just committed to fighting till he dies, was just a beautiful unsung moment. Like it gave me goosebumps. Still does just thinking about it. And they don't show the wound and the broken shield in the movie, in the trailer, or in the GIF version of it, if you notice that. But his arm is physically snapped. He just he sets the bone with his own shield in that moment. It's great. And I thought the Black Widow part becomes harder to watch each time. It's just brutal. And you can argue that she, like Loki, has unpayable debts in their ledger, and it requires their death to pay it. Because, effectively, according to Loki, in talking about her past, she blew up a hospital full of men, women, and children. She's carrying that with her all the time. Every life she saves, it never reaches zero sum for her. So, yes, you can leave the after show and get back in. You may. Absolutely. If I'm still here. I guess that's the trick. On your left is a great line. Yeah, it's a great callback to that. Only seen Infinity War and Endgame once. Have to rewatch, obviously, so much content jammed in there. Yeah, I think one of the great things about the Thanos storyline and the representation of the characters for both Tony Stark and Captain America becoming so inherently pivotal, and why I think the Captain Marvel character is unsuccessful as a story point in them, is because the overarching story of it is almost this fight. It's the same reason I like Blade Runner. That Blade Runner is a two-tiered argument of slaves feel towards their master the way their master feels towards God, and that no one gets out alive, and that the idea that hey Nikki, how you doing? Glad you could be here. I hope it'd be hilarious if it was actually you, but it's not. It's Nick 6. Okay, that's fine. Is no one under the force of God gets to have true control of their own life, that frustration that comes. And in the case of Blade Runner, you've got the acute confrontation of a shortened lifespan, the rage against mortality, the choice of death not being our own, and the desire through humankind to seize that back from the ether. And say, no, we can be in command of our own lifespan. We do decide how we are not puppets of the gods. We do choose how to live and die. It is on our terms. And we should be able to choose to extend our lives and the lives of people around us by bettering ourselves through technology, which is the Iron Man argument. And we should also be able to, have a belief in deity without another person of higher godlike authority insisting their control upon our lives, and killing us on a whim of their own. Meaning that Captain America is fighting Thanos, but at the same time, he has that line in the original Avengers, there's only one God, ma'am, and I'm sure he doesn't dress like that. Yes, I do remember the Super Mario Brothers movie from '93. I have friends who are extras in it, actually, which is hilarious. No one in the Marvel Universe truly dies. Adam Warlock may play a role in Tony and Natasha's Red, and that is entirely true. And that's because that's the puppet of the gods aspect that's, man always struggles with. But in the representation of Tony being the technology of humankind, and Captain America effectively representing the best of us in terms of sacrifice and desire for all that is good in the world, right? Those two things combined are the raison d'etre for humankind. This is why we exist, why we are good, why we are necessary, what the positive force we have in the universe. And that's what fights the whimsical God. I can snap my fingers and you die. The death with the scythe just mowing down whomever it chooses. And humanity has, over the last, since largely the Dark Ages, has sought ways to fight back against that whimsical thing in terms of finding vaccines and extending life and limiting those kind of things. So, yeah. People only die when they... Yes, that's the one thing that can kill you in a Marvel film, I suppose, is asking for more than you're worth. If someone betters themselves, then you lose your friends and maybe family. You end up making better friends that are way more fun. This is true. Yeah, if you're like... If you can't get better at the expense of the people around you, because those people won't put up with it, then they're not good enough to be around you. That is absolutely the case. So, let's see if I can score. I don't know if I have to. Yeah. Trump is evil. He is almost cartoon in his indifference to mankind. I would argue that. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Linda. We've bored Linda with the conversation about Avengers or whatever, or the deeper meaning of superhero movies. But I think it matters. Hold on, SoCal Susie Q. I'll call him up real quick. Hold on one second. I'll go get our guest star. Hold on a second. Oh, hi, Chud. Look who just walked in at the last second. Hey, Cam. Okay. Hold on. Chud came in and she wanted to say hello. Say hi. Hi, Chud. How you doing? Oh, hi. How are you?
Good.
What's going on? Aw.
Hi, Chud.
Hi, Chud. There you go. Hi. Yeah, it's good. Aw. We don't crowd her. She's a grumpy old fat cat sometimes.
Yeah, she scratched me once.
Yeah, she did. She's a little touchy about this. Here, come here. Come in real quick because they're gonna want to say hi. Everybody in the chat room is saying, there you go. Hi, Cam.
Hi.
Look, he got his first missing tooth. Look at that. Finally got one to turn loose. His teeth are too healthy and they held on too long.
And guess what? It's coming in fast.
Yeah. There you go. Carl says hi. Everybody's jumping through their shirt to say hi to you. There you go. Hugs from Brad. There you go. Natalie says hi.
Hi.
Yeah, there you go. Ginger says hi. There you go.
Hi.
EO says hi. Yeah. There's a bunch of them in there. You can just read them. They're all going up on the side over there so you can see them or whatever. They're they want to know what your favorite song is.
There's like this one that has a lot of songs, and there's this other one that I like that has a bunch of songs that I like. I pretty much like Kiss. Mm-hmm. And I think it's Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah,
he's got some pretty good songs.
Yeah, you like Thriller and
yeah.
You like Thriller because you have the scary part.
It's not because of the scary part. It's because of the beat.
Yeah.
When he does his music and how his and when he sings the beat of his voice and he goes louder. He's it's the beat and the sound that goes up and down of his voice.
Right. That's amazing.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Everybody's Oh, Cam, they want you to say, "Come on, man."
Come on, man.
Yeah, and they also, let's see, as a former dental hygienist, I can tell you losing your baby teeth late is the best thing for your permanent teeth. Yay, that's good to know. Look at that.
Thank you. Good.
We feel much better about the idea. That's terrific. So, Cam, they want to, Cam likes Romsey. So they want to know what you thought about Avengers Endgame. They want to tell them the story.
So Avengers Endgame, it's kind of when they did the second part of the last one, because there was two parts.
Movies, yeah, Infinity Wars, and then Endgame, right? So Endgame is the one they want to know about.
It was a big movie altogether, but it was so big they wanted to split up because that would take a whole
6 hours to watch it in one sitting.
A month.
Yeah, right. You have to watch it over the course of a month. Yeah.
It was a pretty good one. It was kind of sad at the end because Iron Man sacrificed himself and he took all the power, so all the power would be sucked to his body and all the power couldn't get back to the gems. Mm-hmm. So if someone tried to take the gems, no power would be inside the gems because he had all the power.
He used them up by doing that so that nobody could do that again, was the idea?
Yeah. So he sucked all the power from the gems,
right.
And he put all the power into his body. So when it was in his body,
it hurt him.
It hurt him, and then he was dead. But he still had the power inside him. So if anybody, if they came
that's
back,
interesting.
If any intruders wanted the stones, they would here's the stones. Nothing, no power would be in there because Iron Man would have all the power inside his body already.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that floated at all. That very possibly, what if Iron Man isn't dead at all, but he's in some sort of stasis, ethereal beyond time and space? His soul is wrapped up with the Infinity Stones, and because he's got all the power of the Infinity Stones in himself.
So if they so it would just be the gems themselves, not the power.
Right. Okay. So they're just rocks now. Now all the power is actually in the soul of Tony Stark, and no one knows where he is. He passed out of his body and went someplace else. So what were some good moments in it? What did you think? Like, what were the great points in it?
The great points in it is that even though Captain America didn't expect it, he still had all of his friends come from the portal.
That's right. When Doctor Strange
sent all the guys from different...
And they said, on your left.
On your left.
That's right.
It was like, whoa, look, Captain America, on your left.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a bunch of people
all coming out. Like, so what was the we talked a little bit about what was good about Captain America, and when he was fighting by himself. Tell me about that a little bit.
First I'm going to tell you the second part.
Okay.
Before I tell you about the great part. So the second part is he just willed the full potential of having the back in time Thor hammer.
Oh yeah.
So he took the Thor hammer, but Thor had the bigger one he made from his friend and
Stormbreaker. Yeah, he got Mjolnir back.
Yeah.
Mjolnir. He got Mjolnir back from when he went back in time. He brought that back with him, right?
Before it was broken, he took that back. Then Captain America wielded the power so he could take that one and Thor could have the bigger one. And then they wield the full potential of having each one. So it was kind of like the Cap
Thor America? Cap Thor America?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cap Thor America.
Cap Thor America. Yeah, right.
America.
Captain Thor. Right. That's true. Okay, there you go.
And Thor should be Thor America.
Thor America? Yeah.
Thor America. I can't say it.
Captain Odinson. Because he's Thor Odinson.
Oh! Captain, because Captain America is kind of like his son now because they're both wielding power like Thor.
Wow, they're like Hammer family. They're like weapon family or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I buy that. So let's see. On par with the rest of Marvel movies, I'm seeing if they're asking you if you could discuss things thoroughly like Hal does. I think it's excellent. He's got Endgame isn't appropriate for a 67-year-old. It's hilarious. Iron Man will come back because the power of calculus compels him. That is entirely possible, right? Hal, do you feel Warlock should have fought Thanos? Warlock is coming in the next Guardians movie. I think Warlock was sitting it out because I think he saw how it played out and being sort of extra temporal. It's a little hard to grasp how powerful he is, and the uber powerful characters have to be peripheral. He could show up at one point, but it's like having Q as a regular character on Star Trek. It's just too much. So, but anyways, tell me about when Captain America was fighting by himself, and it was just him, and there was nobody left. What happened then?
It's just he like Iron Man and Thor were with him, but nobody else.
Right.
Until back in time, Thor was still able to wield both of the hammers until he reached the full potential while fighting. Then he grabbed the hammer when he
became worthy. Right.
He became worthy of the first hammer, and Thor became worthy of the second.
Right.
So they were
when he looked like Zakk Wylde from Ozzy's band. Yeah.
So then he took the hammer. They made him a new shield. Well, actually, at the very end.
Yeah, at the very end.
Captain America took his shield, gave it
to Falcon.
To the guy in the army suit.
Yeah.
Of Iron Man.
Yeah.
He gave it to that guy. So he could be the second Captain America.
Right. Not Bucky, because they thought it was going to be Bucky for a while, because Bucky becomes Captain America and he becomes Nomad, and so does Falcon at one point. He becomes
Captain America no longer could be in the Avengers because he turned old.
Right.
Back in time.
That's right.
But what if he went back in time, went to the time when he was younger, then came out, then he was still young?
That's right. What happens if this was just like a pit stop that he went to at the end of his life? Kind of like the restaurant at the end of the universe in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movies, where you get to watch the end of the universe, but then you can go back to your regular time and experience it. So, yes, Richard thinks that you are the next Roger Ebert, which I think is...
you mean I'm the next guy who might look like Captain America from older?
No, you definitely he's got a little bit of a Steve Rogers look, I think, in a good way. I think
the reason it kind of looks not like that is because
you're not wearing the helmet.
My face is kind of bigger than it is wider in the front.
Well, your head hasn't done growing. Your head will look different when you're older. His head's way wider than yours because he's a grown man. So,
his is like that.
Yeah.
Mine is gonna be like that.
Yeah. If your head is
mine's gonna be like that when I'm older. His head is like that.
Your head's gonna be bigger than his when you're older. Yes, I agree with that.
My brain's gonna be bigger than his.
Right.
I know a lot more than he does.
Yeah, and give that man a shield, right?
Hey, we have a bunch of toy shields.
That's right, we do. You and I play. There's your shield and the hammer that we use all the time. Oh. Yeah. Camden and I play. Thor and Captain America, like hitting the shield with the thing, because up there on that shelf, there it is. We put it up there when we're not using it. But yeah. So what movie are you looking forward to seeing? What movie do you want to see next?
I think since we want to know what happens when Captain America is gone, since he's not in the league anymore.
Yeah.
We might want to see Spider-Man Far From Home.
Sure.
Because that's like the part where it's the last part.
Right.
It's like the last part of thing. It's the last part of the Avengers, and
right.
if we don't figure out what's gonna go on and see what the new Captain America is gonna do and what happens to Captain America and what happens to Spider-Man.
Right.
We're not gonna know anything because we never watched the movie. So I'm thinking of watching that and getting forward to doing that.
Cam's giving movie reviews online, and my mom's dropping in. There's my mom.
Hi. Hi, Dee.
Hi, sweetheart.
Aw, it's such a happy family. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things is not we all simmer down. Yeah, like watch out. You're wearing a low cut top. He's not wearing pants. I don't know what's going on in this family. What did it say? Oh yeah, everyone's saying hi, Mama Sparks. Hi, how's Mom? Cam gets first billing, of course. This is true. Carl says hi, Mom. Natalie says hi, Mom. Can't Stop Playing says hi, Mom. Yes, it's Cam's movie review show. Yeah.
Okay.
But so what movie did you want to go see? Like
Spider-Man Far From Home.
Okay, yeah. And then Gigi wants to go see Secret Life of Pets 2 and Toy Story 17, whatever it is. 4? Is it 5? Which one is it? 4? Okay. And then I want to go to see Godzilla King of Monsters with this one.
I want to see it.
Because we like the other one. We like the other Godzilla movie. Yep. Godzilla. Yeah. Is Cam into the cartoon movies? Some of them, yeah. I mean, we watched them a lot when he was super little, you know.
Inside Out?
Yeah, Inside Out and Cars. And
actually, you have to watch that a couple times.
that's not even his age range. That's like aimed at a older demographic. So, Hal, are your fans all shrunken in your drink? Yes, they are.
Lego movies.
Yeah, that's true. The Lego movie, we liked that one a lot. That was fun. Now he's just making faces because he sees his face in the camera. Now he's just, which is ridiculous. What kind of a human being just makes faces on camera?
You.
What are you talking about?
You're doing it right now.
I don't understand.
You're doing it right now.
I am not.
Yes, you are.
This is
look
how
at
I look
your
all
face.
the time.
Look right at the screen.
I don't love it. What are you talking about? I look fine. What are you talking about? That's not.
That is the new face that you're making on camera.
No, I'm looking right at the thing, and I don't. I look completely normal.
The thing,
yeah.
Yeah, look at that thing. Look at that thing.
Oh no, I look normal. See?
No, I'm gonna keep you looking at the camera. Look at your weird face.
What weird face? I'm not making a weird face. No. Yes, I am a silly rubber-faced git. This is true. Your glass is just cracked. Sorry, I broke the camera, right?
You broke the camera.
Yep.
You broke the camera.
Oh no, it's terrible. Okay, I'm gonna sign off. Time to say bye. Say bye, Cam. Yep. Say bye to everybody.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. Say Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide.
Hal Sparks
radio program Mega Worldwide. I like you have a grown-up voice now. You can do it in your grown-up voice.
I don't want to.
Oh, good point. Good. That's a good point. Yep, that's fine.
That's a good point. I just said I didn't want to.
I know. That's what I said. It's totally good. That's right.
You are freaky.
So yeah.
So yeah.
Hold on one second.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Like. Subscribe and like.
Yeah, you think so? Yes, subscribe and like. Thank you for for telling everybody. Yes, we appreciate that.
Subscribe and like.
So like and subscribe. Bye. Patreon and Super Chat. Can you say Patreon and Super Chat?
Patreon and Super Chat.
There you go. Child labor right out of the gate. Look at that.
Subscribe.
Thank you.
Subscribe.
That's great. Okay.
Hit the like.
Hit the like. All right.
Hit the like.
Hit the like. All of a sudden, yeah.
Subscribe.
That's right.
Push the like.
Yeah, they get it now. That's fine. That's totally good. All right.
I'm walking out.
Okay, bye.
See you guys later.
Okay, bye. Love you. Shut the door. Thank you. So the cats don't come in here and claw my legs to pieces. Thank you. That's what Chud was on her way to do. No, she's out there. I put her outside. She's okay. Yeah, she was trying to crawl up on my leg a minute ago before you came in. So yeah, we've got 154 folks in there, and I can't see how many likes. I can't they don't let me see that. And thank you guys for the super chats today. You guys have been more than generous. I so appreciate it. Every little bit helps. If you watch the show and you can, if you're not set up for it now, you can set yourself up in future episodes to help us out. I appreciate that. 11 likes. Do we have 11? Is that it? It's terrible. What a horrible situation to find yourself in. 126. There we go. There it says it at the top. Excellent. 111. That goes better. I'm still swimming in your drink. Oh, that happens, Joey. You just expect that. So we got and we had a really good turnout, by the way, insofar as chat room volume. So I appreciate you guys. Big round of applause to all of you. 129. You guys can do it. There's 148 of us in here. Anybody who hasn't hit that like button, and some of the people who are in here now hadn't had it from before. 132. Come on, let's go. Come on, hit those thumbs up. You can do it. I feel like a TV preacher. Yes, you are going to get eaten, Joey. It's true. Did you guys see that unprivate that cam video? I will, absolutely. I will. Yeah, I will unlist it, but only for the patrons. The link will work. Don't worry. Wishing all a great week ahead. Thank you, Fancy Free. 133 in there. We got 144 people. There's 11 more people in here than there are likes. You guys can do it. Although some people may have come and gone. I love that. My pleasure, Penny. I appreciate that. And yeah, you like the applause button? That's good. How do I need another jet? Yes, I definitely need another jet. If we get to that point, everybody in the chat room currently will get at least one flight. Hulk smash, right? Keep telling people from Randy Rhodes chat show to show up on the weekends, just the ones without a giant bug up their asses, though. Now, you can let those people... sometimes I need... Here's the thing, and this is... I'm curious what you guys think, because you guys are obviously the true believers, and you're with us every week, and I'm having discussions with this, with my agent and all this kind of stuff about... because they constantly bring up whether or not doing the radio show helps or hurts. Don't worry, I'm not going to stop. But can we like if we already did for the HSRPM show? Yeah. Well, if you're subscribed, you can always like the episode is the idea. So, Natalie, but there's such this fixation on single note branding and all this kind of stuff that everything that I do that isn't exactly in line with whatever they think that brand will sell, week to week, is always a problem. These are the so. They think it's a distraction from what I do otherwise. Like that it doesn't fit the stand-up brand that I have or something. I never quite get it. Just isn't that or whatever. Like you have to sign on to Patreon to get the live show. This is true. They don't know your brand if they think it is an on-brand. I agree. They don't know what my brand is. I sometimes don't know because I do more than one thing. And the hardest thing in the world is branding yourself when there is no, when you do more than one thing, quite frankly. There's a lot to this that you can see a reason why a lot of people do one thing and stick to it. Have they not seen your stand-up? That's another... Well... That's the thing. It depends on, with all due respect, how do those people know what you do here? They don't. They hear it from other people, and they bank shot it through them, and those other people they hear it from don't understand what it is, or try to book me based on other. I wish. Okay, I'm having trouble explaining it because it's inexplicable. And I keep, I'm continuing to grow the station. Obviously, we've done a lot with short, smaller, video snippets and that kind of stuff. With this new software, I'm able to record the show as we do it and gather and put clips up that are a little shorter in duration because it's a lot for people to digest a multi-hour show. And I need to start pulling clips and putting those up. That's on me. But there's a real hesitation in the industry around multi-hyphenates. They just get, antsy when you do, stand up and acting and directing and writing and you have a radio show and all that. Make it sexier. Yeah, I do the whole thing with my shirt off. Well, that's, Charles, that's the whole point to me, is that there should be a value in being, having multiple streams or whatever, and there simply isn't in their mind. Do they think you're a political satirist? No, because technically speaking, in my stand-up, I'm not. I'm socio-political in what I do stand-up wise, but I'm not relegated. I do all my what would be my topical thoughts on the politics of the week, ingesting a little bit of humor, but mostly seriously on the radio show, and then throughout in my stand-up, I address what I would consider the deeper social issues of stuff. Now the video is spinny and sound is shaky. All right, well, I will check. It seems okay on here, but it's going out, but I will swap the audio on it. And in, in a lot of ways, their issue is that, we, this show, on a material level had stalled, essentially, for a good long while with our regulars, which has grown, by the way, immensely. We've literally, our group of regulars grew from, what was effectively 60 last year to over 120, since this time last year. And that's, that's indicative of something that is, growing elsewhere, and my Twitter and Facebook stuff. And basically, they're nothing to sneeze at. But they also kind of reached a stasis and stayed there. Ever since this big purge of followers that happened on Twitter, for some reason, I dropped below 99.5, and I don't doubt that I had Russian bots following me. because of the liberal politics and that kind of stuff that they cut into. That I go into and they go after to some degree, but effectively it's just kind of hummed there, and I'm trying to find ways to level that up without doing anything that I would consider unprincipled. And the problem that I run into a lot of times is that it takes a tremendous amount of jackassery to punch through. So, that's what I struggle with on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. Like, how do you do the stuff that's within your circle of stuff and, work to get into the viral area and get that stuff up if you're not willing to be unprincipled or lie in your approach or not be yourself or, not be genuine or overshare some ridiculous detail about yourself. So there we go. We have actually hit peak number. We got more likes than people in the chat currently. There you go. All right, I appreciate that, SoCal Suzy Q. Thank you for sticking around. Yeah, Pac-Man has over 600K, exactly. But he's also on a network, and that helps. I'm not. I hope they will too, Jude. We're sending you a package this week. So, well, I appreciate you even getting here, Pamela. So, anyways, any notes or ideas or thoughts about stuff that you guys have, I'm all ears, because this is the one area that is refining what I do and finding a way to narrowcast any of it is not my expertise. It is antithetical to, in some ways, to who I am as a human, although I do not disagree with its value. I think it's definitely, I understand where they're coming from. I respect their point of view on some of this stuff. But, so anyways, that's the boring business of it, but I appreciate you guys in any, and any help you guys can give or any ideas, I'm all in. Well, thank you, Richard, for joining us. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to your history podcast. I think you'll like it, Carl. The patrons are going to get to hear it a little bit early. And I've already started working on the episodes for a launch in September. So, here we go. I listen to Right Wing Comedy Podcast, and that's really funny and super tongue in cheek. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting that you can get away with more in the right wing comedy sphere than you certainly can, on the left wing side of things, as far as what you can joke about, as far as people, getting sensitive about stuff. I mean, that's always a concern, I suppose. I think Nerd Halen is genius for you in that it markets your passion and your strength, which is your comedy. I think that's true too, Ginger. And I think it's the dark horse in things. You watch, it'll end up being my primary income, by this time next year in a hilarious turn of events. Well, thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. I don't know if we'll try to put some sort of, I'm just gonna have to form a production company here in Vegas and just have a gathering, and we'll all do it for free for a little while and hopefully turn it into something. It's been a while since you saved a life at an airport. I'm due. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, honestly, I'm in double digits with life saved at this point, and I'm not a professional at it. I think I don't get near the press of somebody who, breaks wind in front of the queen. I'm just saying. I don't buy any grain product like bread without having at least 2 grams of fiber preserving. Finally got my family to pay attention. All right, there you go. Yes, there is lots of right-wing comedy. I mean, that's what Crowder got demonetized this week, and that's what they do. You drink out of a mason jar like my mom does. You're all right with me. Well, thank you. Well, being a Mason, it's kind of an inside joke, and I love that. I wouldn't consider Joe right-wing. I would consider him, effectively our generation's version of George Norrie, or, for the Coast to Coast, that overnight radio show, just done in a podcast. I am, but my record is not 100%. Way to go. Oh, thanks. You are press deprived. This is true. Podcast I watch hates Crowder. There's a lot of that stuff. You already left Sexy Liberal. Well, that's true. I didn't technically leave it. It left me, but I get where you're coming from. I don't know that Jeff Foxworthy is right-wing. I think he's just, kind of family values, and they have absorbed that unfairly, because I think there's a lot of people who believe in those same kind of values
They just don't believe in the hierarchical version of those values. You know what I mean? Like they believe in maybe in a nuclear family as being the best option, but not at the expense of, the rights of women, for example. Was I sad when Lab Rats was over? Well, we all cried during the last episode. I will tell you that. So yes, it was very, because I loved working with those people every day. Joe Rogan will talk to just about anyone, which isn't as bad as it sounds. I agree. Yeah, well, Dennis Miller I would qualify as right-wing comedy if he still did comedy, which I don't think he does, really, even when he tries. Those folks, yeah. Those folks think they own family values, but they can't name them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, thanks, Faisy. Yes, we love Lab Rats around here, and we miss it dearly. It was a lot of fun going to work every day and being funny. It's a good time. I recommend it. Joe Rogan lets idiots tell their stories. There's a value in that too. Sometimes, and this is something that I give Joe credit for, even if sometimes it's accidental, which is if you don't interrupt someone expressing their values with a statement of your values, which is what people insist on in the news sometimes. Like, why didn't you challenge them on this? As long as they're not teeing it up and they're just going, okay, tell me what you think, and I won't interrupt you while you tell me, so I get a good picture, and you can't claim later that I messed with what you thought. I think that's what the whole Jordan Peterson, what you're saying is debacle was with BBC, was that the interviewer was constantly interrupting with an interpretation of what he was saying, and attempting to twist what he was saying into something else, instead of just letting him say what he was saying, and letting the viewer make their own decision about that. And that's a tough one. And Joe will push back on those idiots when they really go to use a movie reference. Yeah. Hal, have you done Rogan? It's a great bump for promotion. I did a long time ago. I don't think he'll have me back on, though, because I'm even though I'm pro-legalization, I'm completely anti-drug. I think it's idiotic, and that was basically ended up being the brunt of the conversation. I don't think he liked me very much. And I'm not I'm more of a, I perform at the Comedy Store occasionally, but I'm more on the improv side of things, for the improvisation. And it's almost like a turf thing. I just don't fit into that crowd a lot, I don't drink with those dudes. That's always been an issue. It's always been, something that's hamstrung my comedy career, is that because I don't drink and I don't do drugs, that I never, drank or got baked with the up and comers ever, I think Joe Rogan might try to spend too much time getting Hal to try some cannabis. Yeah, well, he's not too much of an evangelist about it. He just he and I differ on one philosophical belief, which is I believe that you are complete, and that anything you add to the equation of you is you plus that thing. So if you smoke pot, you are you plus pot. Joe doesn't think you're complete without pot, so he thinks everyone walking around who hasn't smoked pot is them minus pot, if that makes sense. And it is an inherent philosophical difference. Bill Maher hates me because one of his girlfriends spent too much time talking to me. And he got jealous and weird about it. Cam did watch Lab Rats. He was on set with us. When I directed, he would call action sometimes, even when he wasn't supposed to. Yeah, and it's interesting, Jude. I'm not, I always balk at that phrase sober, because I think sober has a connotation that you once were high and you were not. You are not. Sober is a referential word to a previous state.
You have to have been drunk to be sober. I've never been drunk, so I'm technically not sober. I'm just person. It goes to that non-smoker, smoker, breather thing that I talk about in my stand-up. Yeah. So, yeah, here's the thing. And, because I've been, and Ginger knows this, everybody knows this. I am 100% a believer in it being a medically functional for a lot of people. I also think that it has a tremendous value for the secondary chemicals that are not non-psychoactive have a lot of benefit. Obviously, CBD oil is making a lot of advances in those kind of things. And so I'm for people being available. I have an issue with the idea that I am incomplete without something external. I have a principled problem with that. How would you rather perform to an audience who's stoned or drunk? Well, I guess the theory would be that baked is easier. They're stoned, they're laughing more, or whatever. And intermixed with drunks are people that alcohol reacts differently with everyone. So you could have as many happy drunks as angry drunks, and that's not a healthy thing. I'd rather everybody, even if they are drinking or smoking something, that they be, in the 20 to 30% dosed range as opposed to over 50. And my stand-up, I like people to be able to consider what I'm saying and laugh at it, not just because of the face I'm making while I tell the joke, right? So, yeah. Roger looks like he wants to fight everyone. Oh, Rogan, you mean? Wants to fight everyone, regardless if anyone's there or not. All right, Tom, watch it now. Check yourself. I literally worked for legalization with Danny Glover and Melissa Etheridge and others, pushing for that in California, pushing for, primary decriminalization, medical marijuana, and then ultimately recreational legalization. I'm for that. I just will not participate. And I think there's a value in people like me being straight edge and never using it as to act as a bulwark, a wall against the people who, that argue that only the people who use are for legalization, and it's just people who, want to have a lazy habit or something like that want, the right to do so legally, and no one else really cares. I do care. It does matter to me. And I don't think people who are nonviolent drug offenders need to be doing any time in jail. And especially if they're the kind of person who can use a substance and never be involved in a drunk driving accident or any kind of thing like that, I think that person shows us an extra level of respectfulness. So there you go. It's a consent issue, like most things. You get to choose what is right for you, period, full stop. Yeah, and as long as your consent choice in that doesn't extrapolate out into affecting other people's lives, for example, secondhand smoke around children or, drinking and driving and the like, I care less. There is a secondary aspect to the choice idea that, it can cut across a lot of things from drugs to, junk food and other stuff, is that ultimately if there are secondary health effects to it, then it is my business, because you're affecting medical costs, for example. You're affecting, the cost of everything from, pain medication to lung treatments to, the cost of diabetes medication, other kind of things like that. As they, the need for them creates while it creates demand, it also raises the price on some of these things, or burdens the medical system. If you burden the medical system through lifestyle choice stuff, I find that philosophically wanting. Yeah, I don't think that's great. I think that's. Don't worry, Joey. You're allowed to be a goofball. We appreciate goofballs around here. We have no problem with goofballs. That's totally cool. Yeah, Illinois passed legal pot last week. Absolutely. And there's an incredible value to, you remove sort of the enticement to do something illegal or illicit and turn it, at worst into something that people consider a rite of passage, which is what, drinking is legal and people do it underage. But it's super important, and limiting that is important, age restrictions on buying alcohol and those kind of things. But it ends up becoming a rite of passage instead of just simply a point of rebellion. And the attachment to a rite of passage versus rebellion affects how you use it, how often, and why. If you're, some people, there's a darkness to doing something to get back at your parents versus your belief in your own maturity. And usually illegal acts are done, in sort of a vengeful thought form, and they have secondary problems that attach to that. And like I said, I think one of the best arguments for legalizing pot is that it's the idea that it is a Class A narcotic is what I would call the gateway lie. And when you lie to kids and you lie to people and you say pot is as dangerous as heroin, and they try pot and they don't die, the next obvious thought is maybe they're lying about heroin too, and that's what makes them try it. So, Illinois getting all the pot and abortion tourists. Well, they're certainly going to get a lot of people from Missouri coming over the border in for medical attention, and hopefully it's more prenatal than that. How about because it was fun? Yes, no. I think that's a positive one. That one's based on you want to try something because you want the experience. There's a different emotional and psychological weight than carrying it like screw the man. Like that affects not only how you ingest drugs, but the impact it will have on you when you do. I would argue that one of the reasons pot used to make people paranoid when they smoked it. And I don't think that has gone away entirely, but one of the reasons why paranoia was part of it was because it raised your awareness, and also you knew you were doing something illegal, and there were people out to get you. We've talked about the USS Liberty attack before, not a bear actually, and it is an important issue and doesn't get talked about enough. I agree. And while it's off topic today, I will address it in future. Absolutely. Pot is an addictive drug. It depends on your personality. I don't think it's not chemically addictive. It can absolutely be psychologically addictive, but lots of things can be psychologically addictive. Anything that you've convinced yourself you cannot do without is psychologically addictive. Enjoying the chat as a listener today. Got up late, so playing catch up on chores, doing meal prep now. Well, fantastic. We're always glad to have you here. And I think I've done okay pushing the Patreon and other stuff. I'm trying to make you proud. Can't stop lying. There you go. Hopefully. Oops, that's the wrong one. There you go. Patreon. Smash that like. There you go. I don't know why that frame went away. That's super weird. We'll put that in there. Okay, maybe not. How about the two ships almost crashing into each other this week? Yeah, I think that's Russia and China having a joke at Trump's expense. Sex isn't addictive; it's just lovely. Everything just because you would miss it if you couldn't do it doesn't mean it's addictive. Never smoked weed, but did get contact smoke from guys who did. Well, how was Pink Floyd? I've seen him a couple of times live. Let's see. I'm missing a... There we go. You're doing great. Also, others have been picking up my mantle. I see. Yes, that's some degree. You've changed the tide. Can't stop lying. And you have actually you made a huge difference. So I appreciate that. And part of it is the issue with, feeling like as somebody who's trying to give value, being comfortable asking for that. And this is as much an exercise in that for me as a human being as anything else. In the same way that trying to fix the branding aspect of stuff, like asking people to become patrons and all that kind of stuff, it's hard for me to argue that other artists that I believe in who are genuinely struggling to make ends meet and we're trying to improve the show with what we're doing, and be able to keep doing it. But I can't convince other people to sell themselves if I'm not able to do it myself. And then in doing it and being, consistent with it is, there's a learning curve. I'm not gonna lie. It's not easy. It is a very strange feeling. And so, I appreciate you guys letting me, have this kind of social experiment on myself right in front of you. It's the same thing with working out. Like for the longest time, exercising, taking care of myself was something I did in secret for some reason. And I keep trying to look back psychologically for some sort of pinpoint, where like I remember distinctly doing push-ups in my room with my door open and my dad walking by and going, "Who are those push-ups for, you or me?" Like I was being a tough guy or something. And I was like, is that what made me want to like close my door when I work out and not work out in public? Was that it? I don't think that was a strong enough one. I think what actually did it over time was the generalized kind of public negativity towards taking care of yourself that has grown over time. There's almost a weird shame in wanting to, physically take care of yourself or whatever. It's viewed as some sort of extremist lifestyle as opposed to something, that everybody should want, and it's one of those things like you can easily walk into an emotional rake when you look at it that way. Like, I'm going to get in shape. I want to do something good for myself. I want to, take care of myself. And then everybody's like, good for you. And then you start doing it. You're like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, look, we don't all need to, like, yeah, you're going to the gym. Who cares? Like, it's very weird. And anytime somebody starts something new, obviously you're going to be talking about it a lot more and you're going to be invested in it a lot more. And it may come up in conversation as a new point more than you're aware of with the people who are used to you talking about the same 9 things. You've added a 10th, but to them, it seems like the other 9 have died on the vine, and it may not be the case, but I think, that was a challenge for me for a long time. Really, really was. Like we had a gym at Queer as Folk. They wanted us all to be in better shape. So we're like, well, hey, we work nonstop. It's not like we can, I have a gym in my building, but if I'm being picked up at 8 a.m. and dropped off at 9 p.m. and you want me to be up and not baggy-eyed tomorrow to shoot on camera again, you're not taking me home for 2 hours in the break in the middle of the day. I'm stuck out here. So they built us a little mini gym in the thing, and I still felt weird using it when anybody else was in it. And it was, I just, was always there. So confronting that in myself has been part of Project 50. And also the same thing goes with like self-promotion, dealing with branding, finally handling all that stuff. It's a tough one, I know I consider it a form of strength not only to accept the help of others, but to be able to self-promote in a self-aware way. Is in reality accepting your own worth more fully. Yeah, that's true, and it's not easy in that regard. And Ginger was saying, about working out in public. She goes, I don't work out in public because I'm fat. Even when we work out, the hate is real. Even when we're trying to do something good or right, someone's got to say something. I have to say at the gyms I'm at, and I'm not at the normal gyms. I'm at the serious gyms. I belong to Iron Addicts here in Las Vegas, which is CT Fletcher's gym. The I Command You to Grow dude, who I love dearly, and Gold's in LA. And there are very heavy people working out there and they get nothing but respect from the other people there. And I think it's these mid-level gyms that where it has this kind of high school mentality. But no, like literally at these gyms, like if you see anybody in there and they're working, they have your respect. You know, you had gym scenes in the show. That's true. But that was at a location that we went to, the Sixes, and we were there for, for the shoot itself. And, even that, it's like eating. Like you wouldn't pass up on lunch on a day when you had an eating scene, because in the eating scene, you didn't know how long it would take. So you would eat one nibble of every, of your sandwich, this tiny thing. Look at anybody eating in a movie. It's horrifying. And it's one of my pet peeves, which is why I've been sick multiple times after shooting eating scenes, because I can't stand it when somebody sits there like Meg Ryan in When Harry Met Sally, when she does the famous scene or whatever, literally pulls a leaf out of her sandwich and eats it and sets it back down. And I'm like, that's because they were eating the whole time. Very seldom do you see somebody talking with their mouth full in a show, because you have to do multiple takes and they're trying to avoid stuffing themselves. Now, because I eat one meal a day, I would just dovetail and shift my time to eat to that and just stuff myself. And if you'll notice, Michael always he ate. Look at that cereal scene that was cut out where he's watching Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, and I had the biggest bowl of cereal you've ever eaten, and I ate 2 of them because he would eat. That was man. Anyways, side topic. Well, thank you, Joy. I'm glad, Joy, I look like Captain America. That would be an honor. It's the kind of gyms where people go to pick up on other people. Yeah, those I have no interest in. I go to there to work. I have headphones on. No one else is my business. There are dudes, I guarantee though, there are dudes who look at me when I've come into the gym, especially when I started, with disdain, more so than somebody who was really heavy coming in there, because I just simply look, what they call skinny fat, just not in good shape. It's almost worse when you have the structure and the capability and you're naturally inclined to be in okay shape, that you don't do something with it that's more shameful than somebody who's had weight issues or hormone imbalances or illnesses or injuries that have kept them from working out, and they're trying to get back to it or take care of themselves or finally get it together. There's a lot more respect in gyms for that than somebody who comes in and kind of half-asses it. Those are the only people who I think get shredded at the gyms I go to. Terry Crews seems like a lovely person. This is true. My ex got kicked out of his gym for sweating too much. Ew. Hal, when was the last time you watched Lab Rats? Last time I had to cut a demo reel for my agents. I have, yeah. They make me, so let's see if it'll come up on here. So I have to, as actors, we all have these things like that, like Actors Access, which is like for breakdown services and all that kind of stuff. So that if they're looking for you for a part, they can see you and see what you look like and all this kind of stuff. And so I have to put together those kind of things for my agent when they go, because I have all my stuff, EPK stuff. And it's that, I've been doing it for years. Not a big deal. From superheroes to gyms, 2 thumbs up. Yeah, it's a good conversation, Richard. Ultimately, my goal for this year for Project 50 is to have a what would be a Marvel ready body in that regard. Is to have my physical structure meet that. And I've hit plateaus, and I'll raise up and go down, and and deal with like how to shift it, and because I want to do it healthfully and over time, and it's been working, and I'm proud of it. And I'm actually writing a book called Project 50 about this, because I just feel like people write off their as much as we talk about like the standards for women in magazines and blah blah blah. What really happens, and the constant hammer of guys in their 40s about your testosterone going down and that's it, is that there's really no, it's just this, it's either an excuse or an insistence not to try. And I'm not I'm not a fan of that. I will never give into that. I don't believe it. I think it's wrong. And I will never try to talk someone out of being their best self. If you're trying to better yourself and you're trying to make more of yourself, I'll be your biggest cheerleader no matter where you're starting from. So it's super important that we no, I don't have that already, Ginger. I feel like I'm in the ballpark for the first time. I really do. But I'm Hal Victor, he goes to the gym 4 days a week. I go 3. So we're right in the window there. My goal right now is health and agility. It does not matter where you start, but only you know, and you set the standard for what you want to accomplish, but get at it, you know. And if anybody wants to shut you down in it, use it as fuel. So there you go. You know, that's my little diatribe on that. We have phrases like can't, won't try. Yeah. Well, I'll even just physically, you know, like the Dorito shape that everybody talks about, like just having these, like that's normal for me now. This is relaxed. It used to be something if I wanted that, I had to like intentionally flex up to do stuff. But now this is my normal resting state for my body. And so the goal is to have that normal resting state elevate up each time. So so that's what I'm working on each time. But I want to do it. I want to do it in a way that's sustainable and not like I'm racing to have when these guys get ready for a part and they do 6 weeks or 8 weeks and they bitch about it and then it falls off afterwards, is bad. No, I'm not doing a non-shirt thing right now. That's just for patrons. That's just going to be my Patreon thing. That's it. Sorry. Walking through woods every day helped me get my weight under control and my energy up. It's amazing that just walking will do, and pick mushrooms too. Yeah. Well, it's that activity. It's engaging your body, letting your, because I consider exercise letting your body know its worth. Joey, you're being super odd, dude. Fitbit groups and challenges help me drop shirt and waist sizes within just a few weeks. That's great. Yeah. 40 more patrons right there. Right. Yeah, I wish. Good for you, Jude. Living by the water, getting to surf. Yeah. We've been swimming a bunch. It's been helping a lot, too. That's the fun part, because Cam loves to swim now. It's great. He's transitioned into, a little nervy around water to really enjoying it. He's still not a fan of water up his nose, but he's getting there. Yeah, listen to Nightbot. It's nice to see that thing actually working. What? Repub no more? Repub. Okay. He was so funny. How do you explain the politics to him? I don't. I explain the principles to him about why and how we try to be a good person. And he kind of, from the news and what I'm saying about the news to other people, he kind of picks up where it ties in. The important thing, kid-wise, I think, with our children is it does not matter what the behavior of other people is. It's just simply referential. So if somebody is in power and they're acting poorly, they're still a human being acting poorly. So you have to make it personal. Anything that's political, you kind of translate into the personal, and that's how you as far as kids go. Hal, what made you get into stand-up? Who are some of your influences? I got into stand-up. This is I'll pull this clip later. Why I got into stand-up. When I was a little kid, my dad, he's a bluegrass musician, and he started working on he repaired instruments and did fret work for guys like bluegrass dudes. And one guy couldn't afford to pay him, so he's like, "Hey, I can't pay you for the mandolin you fixed, but I'll give you these crates of records." And so a quarter of these, and some people have heard this story before, but a quarter of the records in this, and it was like
80 records were all comedy records. They were, Shelley Berman sketch records and Godfrey Cambridge, if you know who he is, and Richard Pryor and George Carlin, Steve Martin, and it was a Lenny Bruce compilation. There was 50 years of comedy on these old vinyl records that had metal in the middle. They were like tin in the center. They were super thick, but they still played on a regular record player. And I just listened to them like crazy, but I didn't know they could. I just thought they were funny and hilarious, and I would repeat them, but I didn't know it was a person's job to do that. I thought someone just recorded them accidentally. As a little kid, I was like, oh, some guy was in a room making funny jokes, and they just put a mic in there and recorded it, but nobody makes a living doing that. And then as I realized stand-up was a career, I jumped in and started, I decided, well, I would love to be able to do that. Focused a little more on it. When I got to Chicago, demystified it entirely. There's a structure to do it, and I just started, and so I started at 15, and I love it. I'll do it my whole life. And stand-up to me isn't something you do, it's something you are. And so I will always be a comedian. I will always do stand-up. It matters to me. So that was it. And obviously, Steve Martin, George Carlin, and Richard Pryor are obviously primary influences of mine, but there were a lot of comic actors that factored in as well. Gene Wilder and Billy Crystal factored very heavily, as did Dom DeLuise. I loved his energy. I admire beyond measure Don Rickles, although his style and stuff is not what I do at all. And there were a lot of comics that, I have to be honest, inspired me by how bad they were or what they didn't do. That I was like, okay, when I do this, I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to always come up with fresh stuff. I'm always going to incorporate what I really think into stuff. But the comic actors had a very strong influence on me. Harvey Korman and Carol Burnett and Catherine O'Hara. Oh my God! There are bits of timing I learned from her and from Madeline Kahn, especially. You could look at some of my facial expressions; those are all straight up just Madeline Kahn's influence on me. I improv comedy on stage and hate the hateful people. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Jonathan Winters is another great example. Absolutely, he and Robin together are fantastic. You just got your Father's Day turntable. That's fantastic. Love it. Thank you so much, Ginger. That's, because unlike the Godfathers of Comedy, I do requests aimed directly at you. I think I'm cheating a little bit in that if I know you're in the audience, and I know you want to hear something, I'll do my best to throw it in there. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. With Ginger, did you see those people from Bakersfield that drove 2 hours into the Oxnard show? That shocked me. I had no idea. Because they'd never come before. I had somebody complain that I wasn't political enough in the show. So I was like, wah, wah. Sorry, I'm writing. I that whole show. There's probably 4 things, that I talked about before, pretty much. That show ended up being fantastic. But they were like, how come you don't talk about politics? I'm like, I have a show on. They're like, you used to years ago, and I'm like, on Stephanie Miller. I'm like, I have a radio show every Saturday. What? Do tracking on them. Oh, I will. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder were my favorite duo. Absolutely, just the energy, two of them, and the fact that Gene was the only person who could handle Richard. Really, at one point, he really could not get it together except to be on camera with Gene. Oh, the problematic bit, yeah. Hey, someone is flying in from San Francisco on July 17th to see you. How about that? That's wonderful, Liberty. Thank you. You'll get to meet Carl and Ginger, I think, probably at that gig too. We'll have a little. Since you're flying in for that, we'll have a little meetup. How about that? We should do a patron/tweet up or something. Gene was so sweet. He hired me to read for Gilda. Aw.
Yeah, Gene was such a beautiful man and so tender. And I mean, Gina's death just gutted him, clearly. Yeah, it's going to be a great show. I'm excited. Irvine, yeah. And I like untoward comics as well, as you would say, blue comics, people who are rude, harsh, stuff that people would consider offensive, because I believe that that comedy, a comedy club is to real conversation what a mosh pit is to a real fight. That, there's got to be, talk about safe spaces. There's got to be a safe space to mess around with bad ideas and find the humor in it. Even the most awful things. I'm a hardliner about this. And even though I may not do some of it on my own, all right, Ginger, all right. And I have met, I did meet Gene, yes. And he was very sweet. You know what, Richard, from that era, though, it was meeting Dom DeLuise and having him tell me I was funny was one of the greatest moments of my life. Because, damn, that man is so funny. Dom DeLuise was just so naturally sweet and funny, and his timing as a comic actor, just amazing. Yeah, Jude, I agree, but I will get up there to the Michigan area for you. Which comic did you lose it upon meeting them? I didn't really lose it on anybody except for Steve Martin, because everybody said he wouldn't say anything to me, and they're like, I was like, oh, he said something about Talk Soup. I'm gonna go over and say hi to him. And they're like, don't. He hates people. Don't say hi. And I was like, I have to. And like, no, don't. And I went over, and he was great. And he started talking. He was like, blah 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 blah. And I was like, I was so shocked because everybody told me he wouldn't say anything that I was like, I didn't hear a word he said. I still couldn't tell you what he said. I remember nearly everything. I can't remember what he said. I was like in my head going, Steve Martin is talking to me. This is bizarre. He just won't stop talking. This is incredible. Just nod. Don't be an idiot. Say uh-huh. Say something. Holy smokes. By the way, I think the same way about exercise over 50. It's my signal to the body that the party ain't over and it's not time to atrophy. Absolutely. Best interviewer ever. Science goes to the movies with Dr. Green and Louis Black on math. So good. Oh, nice. Yes. Peter and I did voices on Dr. Dolittle together. We were in the same, we got to be in the same booth together, interacting as bees and fish. So, yeah. Let's see. Scrolling back. Okay, there we go. All right. 50 is the hill. Not that I'm going to die on. I'm 50 this year. Yeah. Gene, both of them, I mean, this is in the world of an era of comedy as a mask for tortured souls, which I think has changed a lot in the last couple of decades, especially ever since effectively Seinfeld made a break, because the idea that you have broken parts inside of you that you're trying to heal through attention, that was the only excuse to do comedy for a long time. And now people have it's a legit career and an outlet. And so your family and friends and people react to it differently when you choose to do it. I certainly get accused of that all the time. There's this constant thing that you hear as comics, like, even from people I know dearly who know me, and they're like, you need the attention, or whatever. You're doing this for attention. I'm like, no, I'm doing this because it's a skill that makes me feel good to have, and I'm aware of its positive impact. As a matter of fact, I don't care if you like me if I make you laugh. That's why I chose the name Charmageddon for my special. That's why I made it up, because I was like, I can wreck your world and you still like me to some degree because I made you laugh. and the liking part isn't integral to it. It's I know the value of laughter. I know the gift that it gives. I'm capable of doing it, and it seems like a service. And getting paid for something that you consider a service to mankind seems like a really good business model. You know? I don't ever walk off stage going, I don't think they liked me. Like, what? Even a bad crowd. I was like, they must have had a bad week. I hope I gave them a break. As a matter of fact, I think it's super important. I think the worst audiences deserve the most show sometimes, because they're the ones who are ice skating uphill. They're the ones who, had a hard week at work, and, it's a giant crowd of people who've been through some sort of trauma sort of over the last couple of weeks and really need a break. And even if the laughs don't come out of them as strong as some, obvious early Saturday night crowd that's greased and ready to go, they're with you. And I've had so many people in what you would consider I used to make a joke about this. I think, Ginger, you've seen me do this joke on stage where people, about resting face. But a lot of people who sit there the whole show just stern, and then come up after me after the show and go, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Because they were just on a different channel as far as expression. And I'm always like, well, tell your face, because, wow, you look like you're, watching a car accident happen. But the value of it, the 2007 Vegas show, there were a lot of those where they were just they're just work sometimes. But my thing is like, those are the crowds that have the most value, and so I think it's incredibly important, and as a comic to have that be your focal point. But I'm mildly hostile, I gotta admit, to the idea that somehow these people are, it's a bad crowd, or that you deserve their laughter or attention. Thanks, Rack City. I see you. I appreciate that. Don't spam the chat. You'll get bumped out. But I appreciate you. Thank you. The audience is work, but it's work worth doing. Oh, thanks, Richard. I appreciate it. To me, stand up is more than just an endeavor or a job or an art form. It's a calling, and it adds value to life. And as long as that's your reasoning and methodology, you don't have bad shows. Not like that, anyways. By the way, like and share the show if you. Speaking of shows, like and share the show if you would. We really appreciate that. Share the channel if because we're way in the end of this. If you could tweet out infotainmentwars.com, that would really help. Oh, Kathy, I would love to see that, by the way. When you and Can't Stop Lying and Natalie and I meet up in Vegas, you can bring me a printed out copy of it or email it to me. There you go. Oh, the White Sox are winning? Right on. Sultan. Yeah, there we go. So like, and it's this, it's the same thing with acting. I mean, like, I get obviously a lot out of acting because I get life experiences that I would have to live multiple lifetimes to experience. That's the goal of it. If life is a simulation and you live 10,000 times to experience what every angle of life is before you move on to nirvana, being an actor is one of the quickest routes because you get to be multiple people in the same lifetime. I'm like multitasking as souls, and that in and of itself is a gift. Much less that your work can benefit someone. And I tweeted about this earlier, but it's really weird. I've been in discussions with all kinds of people and developing shows and that kind of stuff. And I keep hearing back about how, like, I would get so many, in the opinion of the people I've been talking to, which have power in the industry. I have written a film. I've written a couple of them. I was a ghostwriter doing scripts for Neufeld Ramey for a sci-fi writer for a while, and so yeah, I've done my fair share of writing, and I've written a couple scripts. I always write stuff with myself in mind because until I'm too far gone, I have a very Stallone approach to it. When are we getting together in Vegas? I don't know. We'll throw it together, but it'll be soon. Where was I? Sorry. Had listened to Dick Hay podcast to see if Peter accused him of something 20 years ago. Yes. Let's see. And insofar as writing, Ginger saying, I build worlds that make sense in a response to a living world that often makes no sense. Yeah, we kind of categorize and try to, focus the idea, your ideas and your mentality on a particular experience. Because there's there's an infinite number. I call it the tyranny of options that most people experience. And this is, as an actor, that's the value. But I've heard multiple times over the last 6 months, especially, that the work I've done, because it is not in line with my stand-up, and the stand-up that I do because it is a distraction from my acting, in theory, which I don't understand, is detrimental to my career. So it depends on, you're the Tom Hartman of comics. Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. You should come to Australia and do your show at the Opera House where they just had Kathy Griffin and we loved her. I just talked to an agent about doing Australia, and word is they won't have me. That was the response. No interest. There you go. So I wish that were true. I know we have a lot of Queer as Folk fans down there. I've been asked to do autograph signings. I don't get it. So, but literally that was the response. I'm like, okay, pass. Obviously I have some work to do. So, and that's part of what, Can't Stop Lying. This is what I've been, focusing on over the last little bit is, I can't create yeses in the business. And this is yet another clip I'll try and pull to give everybody. In the industry that I'm in, and the multiple industries that I'm in, you can't create a yes. You cannot create a gap where your services will plug in on your own most of the time. You can only eliminate the no's. That's the only thing you really have control over, because the rest are outside your realm of influence, your sphere of influence. And it can be very frustrating, and that's what most people take as rejection by the industry. So what I do is whenever I'm presented with a challenge like that, or somebody says that, then I'm like, all right, then how do I fix that? How do I eliminate the no's in that circumstance? There's the, obviously I could work to cultivate a stand-up audience around the Australian market for one of the festivals, which I'll probably end up doing one of the festivals next year. That's the goal, is to do one of the Aussie festivals next year. But the way I have to go about doing that, for me, has to be within my realm of principled action. So I'm not going to just make a bunch of anti-Australia viral videos to, reverse engineer myself, or, reverse psychology my way into them having to pay attention to me. It's just not my nature at all. And if I care to, I will get there. And that's how it has to be for me, period. Yeah. Yeah, you have, the only way you can create a yes and can't stop lying. This is what branding sort of is create a vacancy people don't know they have. I agree. The Melbourne Comedy Festival would be awesome. I would love to do that. And again, this is where that conversation about like playing Michael Novotny on a gay show was a negative, and why being on a kids sitcom on Disney was a negative, because my stand-up is very adult and it's not similar to it. I'm like, well, tell that to Bob Saget. So there. And I'll put my stand-up comedy, my set against anyone any day. I'm proud of it, or I wouldn't do it. I mean, I think that's how you have to operate in the world anyway. It's not even an act of arrogance. If you can't compete on the same playing field with anybody who's doing it, then you go do more work. Let's see. How would you consider looking at a movie script written specifically for you from an unknown amateur? Of course. I mean, there are legal things that has to go through your people, so people don't, if somebody casts you in something else or you make up an idea of your own later, then, it's better if it went through your reps, that kind of stuff. Yes, Bob Saget's still alive, and he's working, and he's doing a lot of stand-up, and he's very funny. But it obviously, Full House didn't have much of an impact. The irony that Saget's doing fine on Full House and Lori Loughlin's going to go to jail. Like, how? All right, we live in the Matrix. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, it is not arrogance, it's confidence. It's also, I think, a responsibility. When I'm proud of what I do, I am indeed Nick Six making music. Nerd Halen is next weekend at the House of Blues, Anaheim. And then I have a new project coming out where I'm waiting till I'm done with the music video to release it, because we're kind of holding our cards close to the chest for this other project. And then, yes. Yeah. So, yes. Isn't there a person with Tourette's who screams Bob Saget every once in a while? I don't know. Yeah, that's the irony, Richard. So here's the thing. I've decided that my brand is going to be screw branding. The hell with branding. That's it. I'm so stupid excited. I'll be the shortest commute to see you ever. Yes. Well, I'm trying to get everything, like I'm going to have to set up shop at Knott's Berry Farm and just do regular shows there like Steve Martin did back in the 60s. Yeah, you can't get execs to buy into your work necessarily. You have to eliminate the reasons why they wouldn't, and then you have to find the gaps you fit into and be the person with the least amount of baggage that they could hire. That's essentially it. And these days it's weird because sometimes they want the baggage because you will draw attention. So it's a tough one. Anyways, we're 12:45. I'm 15 minutes over when I was gonna bail out. So I appreciate you guys sticking around. I'm glad you guys got to see Cam today. I'm gonna slice up some of these things and put them on as short videos later. In my first attempt at actually doing this. Yeah. And thank you, Nightbot, for reminding me at the tail end. If you could become a subscriber, a Patreon subscriber, it would genuinely help us. A cup of coffee or two a month would go a long way towards fixing the tech issues we have with Chicago. You guys the patrons have already helped me fix a lot of the software and digital issues that we had getting on YouTube and staying there. I'm working very hard to make sure that that's as consistent and clean as possible, even when I'm on the road. And now the next step is getting us to where we can solve the radio connection issue, and then beyond that, the ability to do more shows more often. That's what I would like to do. And then the next, obviously, it would be really lovely if I was largely touring and then just doing videos and live streams with you guys. That would be kind of awesome. So, but we're a ways from that. We would need, patrons in the thousands to make that happen. But, no one will ever replace you, Can't Stop Lying. You're the one who inspired me to do that. So there you go. So patreon.com/HalSparks. Please think about it. Even if you can only do it for a short time, you can do it for a couple of months and you're worried, like when the fall school gets back in and you're like, okay, I might have to duck out. No hard feelings. I greatly appreciate it. You can even do one of the higher tiers once, and then once the month cycles through, dump out, and I'll gladly send you all that kind of stuff. The $10 tier would help the most. We got a lot of $5 tier people. The $10 would really make a huge difference for us. So, and you get all the benefits of the $5 level at plus. And we're going to have drawings and patron-only stuff. I'm really trying to build that stuff, and I'm committed to doing that, because if I'm going to inspire other artists and people to do this, I have to be a success in it myself, and I have to put the time in it to do it, you know, and I've got to be able to comfortably make the case to everybody and go, look, I was able to make a success out of this. You can too. Here's how. And yes, thank you, Billy, for being at the 10 level. I greatly appreciate it. A few of you are, and it means a lot. Yeah. So just, 2 coffees a month, essentially. And you make a vast difference in the radio show and our ability to do it and the technology that we put into it. Yes, 10 is definitely better than 5. And yes, Jude, you are at the $10 level. I thank you so much. Would be a one-time payment be okay? Absolutely. You can absolutely do a single Patreon gift. You don't have to sign up for the month-to-month. You can do a $1, like somebody did a $1 drop-in last week. It was totally great. If that's your way of doing it, awesome. And you can do a single non-subscribe straight to it. So I appreciate you guys, and I want it from the bottom of my heart. I am so appreciative of the super chats that we had today. I gotta say, I was overwhelmed by your generosity today. Hal Vickery, thank you so much, and JG, Billy Hutchins, thank you, and appreciate it. It's always lovely to see you're the one who makes us mega worldwide. Whenever we see a foreign super chat in there, that's in pounds, I think. Yeah. And JJ Ray, thank you so much. Sandra and James Etling, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I love you guys, and it means a lot. And it's hard to express. And like I said, I can't argue for people to go after what they're worth if I'm not willing to do it myself. And for the longest time, through my time on Stephanie Miller and in the time of doing this show or whatever, I operated like this was a debt I had to pay somehow, and I think a lot of artists do that. And I desperately want us to be able to move beyond that as artists. People on the left, people who are less comfortable with this kind of stuff, I would like to inspire them to do this, and therefore I'm kicking myself and forcing myself to make myself work through this, because when I say to people, I know how difficult it is to sell yourself and build on what you've got and try to brand yourself. And if I eventually write a book on how to do this, I'm not going to do it and, sight unseen. And I'm not going to be a YouTube channel about how to make it big on YouTube that sells a book about how to get big on YouTube that only gets clicks because other people are trying to get big on YouTube. You got to be a success in other areas if you're going to teach people how to manage that. So I that's my goal, and I'm really working hard to do that. So that's right. So yay, Julie. Yep. I appreciate that, Ginger. That's my goal, because I was very aware that, for the longest time, nobody saw my struggle when I was ice skating uphill to be an actor and make it. And so for me, I think if I can build this part of it from scratch, and a year from now, we're all marveling at how this is a humming, running show, and you guys all were participants in it, I think we all benefit from that, and it all teaches us a good lesson in developing something, building something that lasts and is worthwhile. And I really want to do that. So anyway, so that's what I'm doing. I thank you guys so much. I'm going to sign off and go play with my kid and go take him to see a monster movie. And I greatly appreciate it. Hands down, you guys are terrific. And I miss you guys during the week. I look forward to talking to you guys. It's, it is an emotional compulsion at this point because you guys are terrific. And I like the engagement and I appreciate the conversation even when we disagree. I think it's so meaningful. So there you go. So thanks guys so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.